Sorry, I try to link it up with the video recording. Never mind.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
but you did a great job.
3, 2, 1, go, and every time I feel nervous about it. I don't know why.
Well,
Hi, everyone.
welcome everybody to Christine's Nerves. How are they today? Are they at a usual sky high, or is there anything?
Do you think you
at
can
a surprising
see?
low?
I don't know if you can tell. I'm so sweaty. My palms are so
Why?
sweaty. I don't know, Em, because they're always sweaty and I'm always nervous.
I know, but like, is there
why?
anything particular today that's got you bugging out?
Just like life, you know? Am I right?
Yeah.
Or am I right?
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. For sure, you're right.
Let's talk about you. How are you?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that on my own podcast.
See? Now you know how it feels.
Man. You know, I'm a little pissed.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So, I got myself some Pokemon cards. I don't get them often anymore because now I have to get the expensive ones. And
right. You've upgraded.
I've upgraded. I've gotten all the cheapos, and now I'm like, oh shit, now I've committed, so now I have to start kind of getting the expensive ones. But like, there's expensive, there's like $100 cards, and there's also like $30,000 cards. Those are not the ones that I'll ever be getting. To me, a complete deck is once I have everything that's like basically like $100 or less. Like after that, I'm like, maybe for like a treat myself day, I'd do something else, but I can't justify it. So, but I'm a little pissed. I was on eBay. No, I wasn't on eBay. There was a certain card I wanted. I found it on Mercari. Have you done Mercari?
Oh yeah, that's where I buy some of my Squishmallows.
Okay, so I found Pokemon. That's like my backup place because I feel like a lot of people there kind of throw cards on there, and it's like they're just cleaning out their brother's closet. And I actually really like it because sometimes people don't know what they're selling, and so it's underpriced, which is fun. And now that I've said that, I can never use Mercari again for anyone else who's like collecting cards. And I found this card. It was like a first edition in really good condition, and it was exactly the card that I needed to finish out like this one chunk of my set. And it was underpriced. It was like, I mean, it was still incredibly expensive for what I'm willing to pay. It was like $120. Again, it's a card. I am aware that like I feel grossed out with that, but it was $120 when anywhere else online they start at like $600. And I was like, oh, I was like, I feel like I could justify that with some girl math. Like it's basically free, right?
I mean, I feel like you're saying it's crazy, but like, I don't know, like shirts are 120. Like, it's not like everyone's listening like, holy shit, you know? I mean, I think if it's something that you're like collecting them and investing in them, I don't see it as like,
personally,
if you were like, oh, I just spent thousands on Pokemon cards, I'd be like, whoa. But,
well, personally, I get weird about it. Like, I'm not totally concerned about what other people think about it. It's more like I'm dating probably the most like practical, money smart person in the entire world. And so, not that she's openly shaming me, but I do know that we operate very differently. And every time I'm like really proud to bring something home, I can see it in her eyes. She's like, why on earth did you do that? So I think it's starting to eat at me where I'm like, I know where $120 could also go. But anyway, so I found this card. I've been wanting it for a long, long time. It's been a thing I've had my eye on for probably since we came back
are we allowed to
from
know?
tour. It was a Clefairy, and it was. There's certain ones that are like misprints, and they're the really expensive ones because they're even more rare because it was only one batch of them. That
like stamps.
Yeah, and so this had like a random like dot on it. I know it's so unless you care, it doesn't make sense. But there was like, there were two different misprints, and one of them I actually truly just owned and somehow kept in good condition from childhood. I like found it in my own original deck, and I was like, holy shit,
That
I
is
have
the
like
dream.
and there was another one, and I wanted to have both the misprints. So anyway, the reason I'm mad is because I go on Mercari, I see this thing that is like, you know, underpriced. I buy it, and then the next day I wake up and it's supposed to be shipping, and I'm gonna get all excited, and it says refunded, and I went, the fuck, why? And there, I was like looking through like my history to see if there was any messages I missed, like if I was supposed to like fill something out. I have no fucking idea, and it just there was no reason at all. Totally refunded, and I went, that's weird. So then I go back on. I'm like, I guess I'm at square one. I'm just gonna go look around. I go
Oh
back on
no.
eBay, and homeboy, I guess, wasn't expecting any. Someone must have told him like, oh, that's actually really expensive.
Yeah, fuck.
Refunded it, and then the
Okay.
exact same person with the exact same username was on eBay, not
He
Mercari,
got
and now it was
wise.
selling.
He got wise.
He was selling it for $700. And I was
Oh
like,
gosh.
motherfucker! I was like, who told you in the last 24 hours? Who told you? Who was in my way?
Who the F told you?
Anyway, so
That's actually quite upsetting. I'd be upset too. Be like, really?
yeah, it did hurt.
So close.
So anyway, I'll find her. I'll get her.
I mean, maybe he won't sell it for $700, and then he'll be like, "Damn it! All right, I guess I should just go back to the."
Oh, and then someone else
old
gets a free
price.
one, like for the same price I had
No,
it
like
at. I'd be so mad.
no, on Mercari you can like put like a tag
Oh, I see.
save, like it'll like notify you so you can swoop in if it comes back, you know.
I love a swoop. I love
Just
a
gotta
swoop.
swoop. You gotta
Christine,
do it.
you don't have to tell me twice. Here I go.
Here I go. Here I go. Swoop, swoop.
I think you mean shoop, shoop.
No, I meant swoop, swoop.
Oh, I thought you meant the song Shoop where she goes, here I go, here I go.
I
Here
know
go
that's
again.
the joke. I said you gotta swoop. Here I go. Swoop.
You make me wanna
Mind.
swoop. That was hilarious. It was a good joke. I'm the only person who missed it early on. That's all.
Thanks for
Are you
making
having a
me
good
feel
day?
better.
This doesn't feel like you are. What's happening?
No, everything's happening. You know how I was covering BTK last week?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Do people know that?
I assume they know that. Weren't they
Oh,
listening
okay.
to it?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Am
got
I
it,
wrong?
got it. No, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
My brain is
Well,
apparently in another dimension. That's all.
Are you going backwards and I'm going forwards? That would be fun.
Oh, we can Benjamin
no.
Button from different directions and then we'll kiss.
And I'll be the elderly lady who kisses you on the forehead when you're an infant. That'll be adorable.
It'd be so sweet. Okay, sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, basically, we had to have, as I was working on part 2, we had to have our security system come out and repair it because it wasn't working. So I'm doing my notes, and there's a person in I'm not gonna go into details, but our security system is malfunctioning, and they're in our house, and they go, "What's your passcode?" And I'm like, should I tell him? I don't know. Should I tell him? I don't know.
It's almost
And
like you need to change it before he gets there so you don't have to tell him your actual one.
I thought that too. I was like, is there a way to I don't know. I just was so paranoid because I'm like, man, this is really weird. I'm doing these notes about how Dennis Rader was a security salesman and installer, and now there's one right in front of me. It just felt very odd. And then today we had people come inspect the heater, and apparently our heater is leaking carbon monoxide, and
Holy
not
crap.
leaking it into the house, thankfully, but they're like, you have to sign this waiver that we told you not to turn on the heat. And I was like, okay. And they're like, you can turn it on because it's 30 degrees here, but make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector. Yeah, I was like, mother effer. And they're like, it'll be a month before the part comes in. Of course.
Oh, great. So
covered.
in the dead of winter. Excellent.
Right. Several thousands of dollars upon thousands and thousands of dollars. So
that's so many Pokemon cards.
I know. So you know what? It's just one of those days where everything just seems to be malfunctioning, and I'm like, but why now? Why of all days right now?
I don't know.
It's okay.
You must have done
There's
something
worse
really rotten
things.
in another life.
I must have. And honestly, I'm fortunate, you know. I'm sure people who lose heat and can't afford to repair it, that's its own issue. I'm fortunate that we can, you know, pay for the parts and all that, but like, oof, it is a doozy of a price.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. It hurts. So that's what's happening. Anyway, I'm just still dealing with the sickness, baby sickness.
Still, what's the
Oh
update?
yeah. Blaze just texted me 4 seconds ago and said her fever is 102.7. She's really out of it and is just laying there on the couch. So
Poor
things
thing.
aren't good. Help me. But I'm fine. It's all fine. I'm just so tired. But you know what? I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Do you have room today? This is it's like such a privileged question because I am childless. But do you get to nap at all today? Is there like a wiggle room where you could find nap time? No.
Well, no, because we record during nap time. But
No, I mean, like, do you get a nap time?
I know, but like I could nap when she naps, you know, like they
Oh.
say, but it's since we record. But it's fine because I can't nap anyway, as you know. I don't know how to. So
It's honestly for the best if you've got a kid, I guess, because I think I'd accidentally just fall
Yeah.
asleep and then
yeah,
the
it's
kids,
happened.
you know, setting the
I fell
world
asleep on
ablaze.
the floor of her nursery last night and woke up like, why am I so uncomfortable? Oh, I'm on the wood of the floor and I'm old now, so it hurts.
Oh God. Well,
And then
do
she
you
goes,
need?
hold my hand. And I'm like, okay. So I
That's
just put my
precious.
arm in and then lay there and fall asleep.
Do you need anything? You need a compliment? Do you need to take 3 breaths? You do 3 breaths again? No. You don't want that?
You know what? Let's do 3 breaths again.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Ready, everyone? Everyone listening, we're all doing our weekly 3 breaths because I know you're not breathing any other time. Okay. Ready? Go.
Imagine
And
if
now,
Jack just wasn't paying attention, thought that was just like dead air and just cut it all. And everyone's like, huh, that's weird.
and now, if you have water by you, this is your weekly reminder to drink some water, you thirsty little rats.
Have a sip. I have my Blaze got limoncello water. LaCroix.
Oh my
Some
God.
lemon themed to pep my spirits up.
I love when you feel peppy. I wish, by the way, I had a D-Peppy, but
Oh, me too. That has caffeine. Oh wait, maybe I'll text Blaze to bring me some caffeine.
yeah, that's certainly the pep you're looking for. I don't know if your uncaffeinated drink is going to give you anything.
I just
speaking
went.
of what?
I'm sorry. I went to text Blaze. I'm like a Delulu today. I'm like half alive, but I just went to text Blaze and I accidentally clicked M, you know, because you're on the brain. And I just like scrolled up without thinking. And the last 3 things you sent me a picture of you at age 10 wearing a hat with a picture of you on it on the the basketball team. Then you sent me a picture of the word team spelled out in Scrabble letters and said, I bet you would have made flyers like this to recruit people to your Scrabble squad. And then the next link was from 3:42 a.m. and it's a YouTube video called It's a YouTube video called When You Have to Finish Your Homework in Less Than 1 hour, This Playlist is for
Have you listened to it? It's just incredibly. It's like old like old opera music, but it's like all
the
very like.
picture is like a man in like a old ass Da Vinci painting of like the Last Supper. Like I don't know what's going on.
It's very, very like fast paced opera music. So it's like. It's like
oh, I see. It's like tension is building because homework is due.
It's
okay.
a lot of.
I just love that at 4 a.m. M sends me like, "Hey, your homework's due in an hour. Here's a playlist." I'm like, "What do you think I'm doing right now?"
It was me literally doing my notes for this at 3 a.m. and going, "This is how I feel right now." And so I was just listening to, I was just listening to a bunch of clamor. I don't know what else to call it, but it was
It's clamor. That's a good word for it. Like looking at the picture, I'm like, it looks clamorous. Not glamorous, but
glamorous.
clamorous.
By the way, that hat, that's the other reason why I drink, because I've been trying so hard for weeks now. For people who don't know, if you follow me on Instagram, I mentioned it a while ago, but if you don't, this is your first time hearing it. I used to be on the YMCA basketball teams when I was a kid. One of the things that you get if you have been on a rec team, a lot of times they'll give you like your own like stat athlete card. Like, oh, you've got your own picture of you on a basketball card. And when you flip it over, it says like your height and your weight and everything. Apparently, when you're younger, when you get these cards, you can also purchase additional merch with the picture you got. It's essentially like your YMCA yearbook picture on the team. And you can get other merch with that picture on it. So apparently at some point I was 8, so I was not in charge of the catalog at the time. Someone in my family bought me a hat with my basketball card on it. So I was going through pictures recently and I found a picture of me wearing a hat of me. And then I thought,
tried to explain this to me before, like without all the context. And I was just like, what are you even like? There's a picture of me wearing a hat with a picture of me. And I'm like, what are you
so now
about?
my new plan is to take that picture and put it on a hat and then post a picture of me wearing a hat of a picture of me wearing a hat of a picture of me. Yeah. And that's like all I want. And
Em somehow thought that was going to be like after we recorded last time. Em thought that was going to be a clearer story for me to understand. But now that I kind of get the context, I really adore it. And I don't even need the hat. I just want the picture. I want the trading card of you.
I do have a trading card left. I can give you
$600. Oh, never mind. I would pay for free on Mercari to get that card.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I paid $600, and he said, "Oh, I have one," and I'm like, "I'm not giving you $600."
I think I've got one in my memory box. I've got quite a large memory box.
I need you to understand that I would seriously pay big bucks for that. And also, I love that. Like, I imagine most of us from the '90s kind of remember. At least maybe it was just my mom, but I would always be like, can I have a hat and a thing and like my picture on something else? And she'd be like, absolutely not. Like, we're not paying $40 for a baseball cap with your hat face on it. I just love that some kids out there did get to have that experience, and I'm like, man, the fact that it's still not in your possession is so tragic.
I have no idea what happened to it, and it was not of my choice, because I remember loving the shit out of it. I thought the girls were screaming for me with that.
They might have been. They are now. Everyone looking at it is going, holy shit, that's amazing. So
if people can hype me up one day when I do get this hat of, the whole thing, I would really love to see some people go a little feral in the comments.
I'm hyping you up right now. But yeah, you guys, come on, step it up.
Just because, middle school me, I really thought this is what's going to get me my first date. And obviously that is not how the story went. So anyway, I'd appreciate it to heal some old trauma. That'd be nice.
Okay.
I'm so deep and brooding. I'm such a bad boy. You don't understand.
I love that my trauma is like, I didn't even get a hat with my face on it.
I have worse trauma if we'd like to unpack that separately, but I will say,
I thought you meant than me. I was like, go for it, take it. I don't care. You wear that badge. You mean worse trauma than the hat? Yeah.
No,
don't worry. I think we all believe that. I don't think any of us I don't think any of us have that kind of experience as the worst of our trauma. And if we do, good for you.
I remember being so confused why it wasn't the conversation starter I thought it was. I remember so vividly. And now I feel like at this point I'm bold enough to just go up to people and be like, this is unhinged, but this is probably the best thing you'll see all day. Look at me and my hat, and look at the hat. Take a closer look. Oh, what's that you see? It's me again.
I almost think that there's just an edge of irony to it now, though. You're like, I recognize how silly this is. I feel like back then it was like, no, this is just badass. And maybe that's why I didn't hit as hard as you thought.
Panty dropper. Yeah, I thought it was like.
Yeah. I feel like maybe now it's like, wow, this is quirky and goofy, and we can all appreciate the style of the 90s. But back then it was like.
That hat was playing the long con. It was like, one day it is going to do magic for you.
Today,
but not
that
yet.
Day.
I hope so. Anyway, That's another reason why I drink is because getting that hat has been so damn hard to build because there's so many colors on it. So
sorry.
there's not a lot of places that do like iron on or heat press for a hat. So anyway, we'll figure it out, folks. Christine, I have a story for you.
Thank God.
Was that not fun? None of that? Okay.
No, I mean, I what I meant is I need a distraction from everything else in life. So please regale me.
If that hat wasn't a distraction, I don't know what to tell you. This is not going to do
I know,
it
but I
then.
felt the conversation dying down, and I thought, oh no, the darkness is creeping back in. And then you said, oh, I have a story. I said, oh, thank God, M's here to save the day. Pull me back from the brink.
That's right. Yeah. Keep saying things like that to me. My ego will go places.
Will.
Okay, so I have a story for you. Super short today, compared to my usual stories, but I thought it was I don't know, not totally silly, but a little silly if you're feeling up to it. Especially since your story, I'm sure, will give us all every sort of heebie-jeebie. So
yeah, let's start with the softball. You know.
Mm-hmm. So this is the Augustine Steward House. I know you won't know what that is, but I'll give dramatic pause anyway.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So first thing I got to tell you about this place, because I gave it a little quick Google search. She's crooked as hell. This house is bent. Like, she's got, I don't know. Someone has to do an X-ray on her. She's looking rough.
Bent house.
Yeah, you say it. You tell him, Christine.
Wait, can I see a picture? Could you send me a picture?
I'm sending you a link right now.
Oh, good. Is it like Leaning Tower Pisa level, or is it?
No, but she is like a little bit of a head tilt. She's definitely judging you.
Ooh. Oh, that actually gives me a headache, weirdly.
It looks like an optical illusion.
It does. I feel like I need to be like squinting at it.
You know what? Maybe she's not a head tilt, but she is a hand on the hip lean.
Oh, that's a better way. It's sort of just like a lean, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's swaying. Shifting. She looks like a tornado's coming through, but it's actually a still day.
She looks like she's had a couple of White Claws without eating breakfast.
She looks like Christine at CrimeCon 2018.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, that would be the Leaning Tower of Pisa is the more accurate depiction of what I look like at CrimeCon, if we're being honest. But this house is me on most other evenings.
That was a deep cut. I'm sorry, Christine, but...
Oh, there's photo evidence on Instagram. I'm sure people have witnessed it. It's
not a single picture where both of your eyes are open.
No, and usually I'm behind the bar where I'm not legally allowed to be. So it was a interesting time of our touring.
Well, so anyway, this house, I don't know anything about construction. I don't know why she's tilting. I don't know what the deal is. I think it's just over time. Maybe things are not as sound as they used to be. I don't totally know. But if I would be worried, it's in the middle of like a pretty walkable area.
Yeah, you'd want to hire a really good what do you call it, when a house inspector before you moved in there to just really check the foundation on that thing.
I'd like it to be a marvel where like it actually is built perfectly sound. It just looks funky, but I don't think that's what's happening.
That's probably doubtful.
I would definitely at what point, how far does it have to lean before people start getting worried and like they call on a contractor? You know,
I worry that it's going to lean by like half a degree every year, and people aren't even going to notice until it's sideways, and they're like, "Wait a second, was it always like this?"
It's like, wait a minute. When the wind blows, it blows. Yeah. So anyway. She's crooked. I wanted to get that out of the way now because it was my favorite little fact about her.
Cool.
And this house is in Norwich in Norfolk, England. And it was originally built for, can you believe it, Augustine Steward, as the Augustine Steward House.
I can believe it.
Who is Augustine Steward, you might say? Well, the 3-time mayor of Norwich and a merchant. And you know what really grinds my gears, Christine? I can't stand how many goddamn times when I'm talking about something from yesteryear and people are a merchant. That's like, I feel like that's like people today without a job saying they're an entrepreneur. It's like, just tell me what you do. I'm over it. You know,
I'm in Bitcoin, you know, I'm a Bitcoin merchant.
I'm in finance. I like, by finance, I mean, I like look at people on TikTok in finance, but
Yeah.
I'm in finance.
I'm in crypto, and by that I mean cryptozoology I listen to, and that's why we drink. That's about as far as my crypto
Wait, can we all start
experience
saying
goes.
that now? I love that.
I
I'm in
love it.
crypto.
Let's do it. We're in
Wait,
crypto.
can we do a
This
little?
is a
Can we do
crypto
a
podcast.
Imagine a shirt or something that says "I'm in crypto" and like it's a coin with like a Bigfoot in it.
Wait, I need to make sure that doesn't exist.
Eva, write
Eva?
that down.
Write that down.
I'm in crypto, and it's a cryptid situation.
Oh,
Eva,
I
write
typed
that
in
down.
I'm in crypto, and now the internet's like, you are? Well, your ads are going to change. I'm like, no!
The algorithm's like, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Anyway, so Augustine Steward was a merchant. Use your imagination. So then records say this house was built in 1549. Yowza.
Whoa.
And she's been leaning ever since. But parts of the house are also said to have been built decades earlier. So some of the house could be from like the 1400s.
Whoa.
And there's been additions since, but I guess her bones are pretty much from 1549.
No wonder. My bones are crooked and I'm 30 years old.
You know what? You make a great point. That's what my back would look like today getting out of bed. So
also,
yeah.
before anyone asks, I'm 32. Yeah, I know. Don't remind me.
But your brain doesn't know that, which means we're in dangerous territory.
It's bad news.
Today, this house is one of the most photographed buildings in Norfolk, and I wonder if that's because of her little lean.
Could be.
But also a fun fact here is that this house still has part of its medieval undercroft. And honestly, as an American, that's the first time I've ever said the word undercroft. It is apparently, for people like me who don't know what that is, it's a cellar used as like a storage room.
A cellar used as a storage room. Okay. So a basement. Got it.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking too. But now I'm going to start calling the basement the undercroft because why the hell
sure.
not?
I'm never going back.
Especially your basement. Your basement's an undercroft.
For sure. Yeah. If there was ever an undercraft. Is that what it is?
Croft.
No. Under what? Oh,
Croft.
Okay. I'm thinking, okay. Laura Croft. Undercroft. Okay. Got it.
But yeah, your place, I mean, no comment. When you actually, here's my comment. When you
I was gonna say, no comment, bullshit. Here they go.
If you were to ever find yourself in a place that does not look like a residential home in a suburban neighborhood, you're probably in Christine's undercroft.
It's really scary.
It looks nothing like the rest. You come upstairs and the sun hits you in the eyes and you're like, where was I? It's
you're like where have I been?
It's like a totally other land. It's crazy.
It is. It's a scary place. Gio loves it down there.
You know who's going to love it? I say it every time, but it's going to be your kid as a teenager. She's going to make that place the party pad. And I'm going to help her, by the way. I will be the person who designs it, sets it up, makes it clean for her. I'm going to be like that weird, like, hippie Hollywood relative who has a really distant relationship, but I come in and just really wow you and then I disappear.
And everyone's like, how are you related? And then Leanna's like, I don't really know. They just
like, that's a secret.
Sometimes.
It's a secret. I would like give the answer in riddles. It'd be like, follow the attic and down to the undercroft.
Like, I'd regret asking.
Yeah, it's like, never mind. I actually don't care.
Mind. It's not that interesting.
So the house sits on top of an alley, and this alley is very appropriately called Tombland Alley.
Oh my God. Laura Croft Tombland Alley. Undercroft Tombland Alley.
Did you just game the system? What just happened?
I sure gamed it hard. Yep. That's what I did.
I'm in the mainframe, folks. Okay.
I'm in the mainframe. I'm in the undercroft.
It's called Tombland Alley. Tombland. I don't know how it's actually pronounced, but it's spelled Tombland. And it comes, it's before so it ends up becoming like a very haunted place. But at the time it was named that because that was Old English for like an open area. And it was just describing the spot 1,000 years ago. It was just an open land, open space.
Okay.
And this alley sits on a former road that ancient Romans used to occupy England. So if we're thinking like how far back do the ghosts here go, you know, ancient Rome. Wow. And below the alley, there's rumors of there being a plague pit. where there was a mass grave to toss in victims of the plague when burial demands got overwhelming and they didn't have time to handle one-on-one cases.
Oh, no.
So it actually ended up being incredibly appropriate. And I like to think they were originally going to put the plague pit somewhere else. And they were like, I know a place with the perfect name for that shit. Let's redo all the logistics.
Basement. Oh, never mind. Sorry. That would probably also serve as
Leona's
a plague pit.
hangout spot.
Yeah. Leona's Cool Kids Club.
You know, my hangout spot, we called it the Kids Club.
Well, that's probably what most kids call their hangout, just saying.
Mine, I don't know. I'll have to show you pictures one day when I find that other picture of me and my hat, and the picture of me and my hat, and the picture of me and my hat. There are pictures of the Kids Club, and it was official. We had a test.
I'm not saying yours wasn't cool. I'm just saying I think Kids Club is a pretty
Christine, I know exactly what we're going to do for our after chat today.
What?
Okay.
What?
This is so humiliating.
Oh,
so
great. Okay, I'm in.
I'm taking one for the team. This is actually probably the most embarrassed that anyone's ever going to see me on this show. I'm trying to figure out if I even want to talk about it. So, the Kids Club, it was a real thing. It was it was my mom's way of trying to give me a distraction during the divorce. And she was like, pick a room in the house, turn it into whatever like wild shit you want. It was essentially my pre-troll hole. And we had a slide in there. We had icicle lights everywhere.
Jesus.
We had a secret entrance. We had like all of this stuff in the basement. We even like had like a lock on the door, and it was password protected, this room. And like the password protection was a 9-year-old just saying like a silly word on the other side of the door. But I was really, we loved the Kids Club. There was 4 of us as founding members, and all of us got together on the weekends and hung out in the Kids Club. And we made this test because other people were like, we told people at school about the Kids Club, and they were like, I want to join. And I went, you got to pass the test first. Because I had heard somewhere that like initiations were important. And I have a copy of the test here. And it's really, really, really stupid. And also, like, it's so obvious. Like, any therapist could take one look at it and go, you clearly didn't want anyone to ever pass this test.
What the fuck is it? You're like, you did not want to share your kids club with any other kids.
I wanted it to be like Club 33 elite. Like, you just can't get in. Like, it's like, I wanted it to be the new Skull and Bones. And I was like,
oh my God. Even at age like 8, you were fucking whatever age this was. You were already in your secret society bullshit.
I know. So I still have a copy of the test. I will be fully embarrassing myself by reading aloud the questions to you, but
I get to take the test. I get to fail out of Kids Club.
And not to say, I'm not trying to like make it that hard of a challenge for you, but nobody's ever passed the test.
I was gonna say, I already know. Listen, I'm excited to get rejected from Kids Club. That's gonna be on my newest resume. You know, I feel like that's an honor I can't wait to achieve.
It's about to be a real embarrassing after chat after this. So if anyone is not part of Patreon yet, please go join, and then you can listen to me.
We're gonna be the Kids Club rejects, and we're gonna make an even cooler club that M can't join. You know what I mean?
That hurts my feelings, and I deserve it. I deserve it.
I'm just kidding. You can enter at the end of the Disney Channel episode. You get to join. We merge our clubs together. That's how this all ends. Happy ever after.
Yes,
it's a double kids club. Yeah,
that sounds good. First, cool. I have to take a sip of my own medicine. So, it's bitter, to be honest.
It's not good.
Where were we? Tombs and plague pits. So, so anyway, below. So we're talking about. Let me just get my facts straight again. We were talking about the Augustine Steward House, and it sits on top of Tombland Alley, which had theoretically, or the rumors say that there was a big plague pit down there, because we've talked about it for like the last several weeks, everybody. But the bubonic plague hit England, wouldn't you know it?
She's back.
And So in this area, specifically in Norwich, 76% of the population was wiped out. So
I gasp every time because every time I'm shocked. Like I just don't know how else to react.
no, I keep bringing it up and I'm still blown away every time. But I think the number was like out of 25,000 people that lived there, only 6,000 people remained. So
Jesus Christ, that's crazy.
it's said that the graveyard on Tombland Alley had to be completely razed to make room for new plague victims. So I'm assuming that means like they had to put bodies on top of bodies, or
Oof.
I honestly don't know. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad.
Doesn't sound good. Bodies and victims, nothing good
To
can come of this.
raise a graveyard for more bodies. Yeah. So
Oof.
this is the protocol at the time. Because remember I told you a lot of places were really strict about the
Yeah.
bubonic plague, and like for
they
the
would
right reasons.
fucking murder you. If you went to
Literally,
church.
there are
It's like, you went to church, you asshole. We're hanging you outside. Jesus Christ.
they were not fucking
Whew.
around. They were like, do not get us sick, and be with the people, not with yourself. So anyway, so they took it very seriously, and they had this protocol, at least in this area of England, that if there was a wave of the plague coming through, if people died in a house, the house would be boarded shut for 40 days. Then they would
my God.
they would paint a red cross on the door to warn people, like, get the fuck away from this. This has been
Jesus.
infested and don't come near this house. The house was then reopened and cleaned out after the fact, but items had to stay even longer because at the time they really didn't know what was causing the
Sure.
plague. And so they were just kind of guessing. They were like, maybe it's still sitting in furniture and it's like still sitting in
Yeah.
carpet. So it was a lot of guesswork, but they'd board up the place for 40 days and I guess let it simmer down. And then they would reopen it and clean it out. And then certain things that were more
Imagine
absorbent,
this.
I guess.
So wait, did the person... Okay, I'm such an idiot. Sorry. I was thinking this whole time they left the body in there, but you're saying they took the body out and then closed the house.
Took the body out and then closed the house.
Got it. Okay, I'm like, the smell must have been terrible.
Oh,
Okay,
no, it was-
I understand. They took the body out.
Once they
left
had
it.
on record that a house had a death, they
I
would
see.
remove
I
the
see.
body and then they would do this whole thing.
The cross thing on the door is creepy as fuck. Like, that's
I know.
very biblical. Yeah.
And I wonder, like, when I hear cross, especially painted red, I think red cross and it looks like a plus sign. But do they mean religious cross? I don't know.
They
probably.
probably just meant like a red X or like a red cross. They probably didn't mean a religious one. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe
Probably just meant, like,
someone.
stay away.
Oh, like an X, like
Like an
do
X,
not.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why I say this with such confidence. But
I'm
that's my
pretending like you're
guess.
my like time travel escort. I have no
I
idea.
love when you pretend like I know what I'm talking about in your story. It makes me feel really smart.
Christine, I think you're I think you're so smart, and this is just a moment where you deserve a compliment. In general, I think you're so smart. So when you
The
say something,
historians are like, let me just step in here because Christine's full of shit.
I'm also the person who thought I was going to tell you about the back rooms and then taught you like intergalactic space. So you know,
but like, who can do that? Only M.
no, only neurodivergent people with a 3 a.m. hyperfixation.
Who
it's
listen
one of
to
our
like opera, like high sped opera on YouTube.
as I'm like becoming Neil deGrasse Tyson overnight.
Jesus Christ.
So anyway, they would reopen the house, clean through it. And in the 1500s, this was 1578, the plague came through the town once again. And there was a big kerfuffle about it because the queen had recently been there. And a bunch of, I know, the queen had come, and that also brought in a lot of tourists. So it created a bit of a scandal of like, did the queen fucking bring us the plague? Like, it's like, or was it visitors? But like someone from the outside came in and did this to us.
Uh-huh.
So this event is often blamed on the event of the queen coming is what's usually blamed on the next outbreak, which lasted through the summer. And the last family to live in this Augustine Steward House, because I think after this family, nobody else lived in the house. So yeah, okay. So in the 1500s, the last family was there. The plague is going on. And one by one, everybody starts dying in this house. And there was
Mm,
a mom, a dad, and a daughter.
mm.
And the daughter was a little girl.
Aw.
Um, so, and then I guess maybe there were some other people. There's different versions of the story where other people were staying with them. But one by one, people stop coming out of the house every day and people notice. And it's assumed
Oh,
that they all died in their home.
okay.
So authorities come in to do their whole protocol. Um, but something gets mixed up in the messages where they thought the people who bring out the dead had already shown up. And they, as you
Oh,
predicted,
I knew
started
it.
started boarding up the house with the bodies inside.
Oh, shit. Okay.
As you said it, I was like, motherfucker, Christine.
I'm
You
so
figured me
sorry.
out.
I'm sorry. Oh, no.
So, as you thought, yowza, the smell had to be crazy. It was 3
Horrifying.
decomposing bodies for 40 days, right? It was over a
Ugh.
month.
Right.
And so authorities show up to reopen the building, which I can't imagine their conversations on the way there of like, oh, well, at least it's clean now. And it's like actually it's so much worse.
They're like, it's so weird. The closer we get, the worse it smells.
I
That
know.
doesn't make sense.
I know. So they're opening up the house. They find out, holy shit, there's 2 bodies on the floor in this house, and it's the husband and the wife. And
Ooh, on the
they go up
floor.
they go up to the bodies, and they realize that the bodies have large human-sized bite marks in the bodies.
Oh no.
When they
Oh
go up
no.
when they go upstairs and they end up finding the little girl's body, because she also ended up dying in the house, they find human flesh in her mouth. And this is when they realize that she was still alive after her parents.
What the fuck?
And this is the main version of this story that
It's so
people know,
fucked up.
is that she got boarded up inside the house and was probably
Jesus
too
Christ.
small or maybe weak from something, and she couldn't call out for help or nobody heard her while they were boarding
What
up the
in the
house, and she got
fuck?
stuck in there with her dead parents and
What the
ate them.
fuck? What the fuck?
Another version of this says that there was actually still a bite of human flesh stuck in her throat, and it's assumed that she actually just died from choking and never
God's
actually had
sake.
any signs of the plague. She just died
Oh my
consequentially
God.
from that.
Great. Cool.
There are less horrifying versions of this story, but the main one people have heard is the cannibalism one, because of course.
Yeah.
Some people think that what's even eerier about this is that when people would get the plague, it was common that they would end up getting buboes, which was essentially like swollen lymph nodes. And the girl didn't show any of those, didn't show any signs of having gotten the plague. It's almost as if she lived with 2 people who died from the plague and somehow didn't catch it. Apparently,
Huh.
for centuries, there was actually a very few people who had a genetic resistance to the plague. And it's thought that maybe she was one of them, and she
Whoa.
only died from starvation or
Well,
choking on
that's
her parents.
Fucking horrible. Choking on her parent. Okay, that's the world's worst sentence. Like
sorry.
bar none. Bar none.
Another version is that all of them were still alive while the house was getting boarded up, but they were all weak from the plague and couldn't call out for help, and so they watched themselves get boarded in, and then they starved to death.
Okay, great. So they're just all fucking terrible.
It's like the Titanic when they all just kind of start holding hands and just look around, you know?
It's just like, this is our fate, I guess. Ugh.
Yeah. Another version is a young woman who was either boarding there or worked for them in some way. She was also sick in the house, and she starved to death alongside the girl. And now both the young girl and that young woman are said to haunt the space. So you have 2 chances at seeing a ghost. I don't know where
Great.
the hell the parents went, but people have not really seen anything of them.
Ooh.
So anyway, both the young girl and the young woman are said to haunt the Augustine Steward House, as well as the nearby streets of Tombland Alley. The whole area is just known to, you have a chance at seeing either of them at any moment. And the girl appears in the alley a lot. She appears in the house. She appears in the graveyard at the nearby church. She really seems to just be like the damn councilwoman
Well,
of
she
this.
probably she probably, first of all, she deserves to be. Second of all, I feel like she can finally get out of the house, so she's gonna
Right?
get out of the house, you know?
I feel like I also feel that way of like, well, fuck, why on earth would I keep staying here? But
Hell
also, why would
no.
you keep staying here? You know?
Anywhere.
Like,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
go, girl. Be free.
Go, be free.
She is often seen in ragged gray clothes and her legs have faded away below the knee. So it looks like she's floating a lot of the time. She is also known to, in the house specifically, to open and close doors, move items around, and makes people feel like someone is standing way too goddamn close.
Oh, no.
Which I love that
no.
she's just like on your ass, like for no
She's
reason.
just like in everybody's business now that the plague is over and she can.
Now that she can breathe near you and not worry about getting the plague.
Oh.
But yeah, she's apparently all up on you. It's like you could be anywhere in the cosmos and you're picking right next to my fucking face.
Right
Get
by
away
my
from me.
face.
The young woman is also said to be wearing gray. She is known as the Gray Lady.
Hey.
And she wanders the alley for eternity. Yikes, I can't imagine. One time she was seen entering a church, and then she made her way through the entire church and exited out of permanently locked doors to go back to the alley.
Oh God.
So there's no way anyone else could have opened the doors, but they saw her. I don't know if she opened the door or like walked through the door, but she did it when no one else could. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She's also known, well, the house, I'll start here, that the house has lived many lives at this point. It's been a coffee shop. It's been a bookstore. It's been an antique shop. I mean, it's hundreds of years old. It was even recently an escape room. It might still be.
No way.
And one of the rooms was based on the ghosts of that house, which I love.
Shut up. That's crazy. That's actually terrifying to be in a haunted house playing a game about the people who died there. Yikes.
It's like, it's the fun version, because I think this part is a little tasteless, but I've heard of like houses where people have been killed, then you host murder mystery parties.
That's no good.
That's
Don't
not
do
the vibe I
that.
want. But I love an
No.
escape room about ghosts because it's a fun thing about an alleged thing. You know what I mean?
Right. True. It's not like we're joking about the murder. Haha. It's like, this is the lore of this particular
It's like ghosts might not
building.
even be real, so this is all
Right.
probably fine.
It's definitely a better angle in my mind. Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the Alton Towers that we talked about a while ago because they had a roller
Theme
coaster.
park? Yeah.
Yeah, they had a roller coaster about the ghosts that haunt that area.
Yes. That's pretty cool.
I love when people own it. I'm just so mad at everyone today, Christine.
Whoa.
What gets me? What
gets you? What grinds your
really
gears?
gets me? It's
You tell
when
me.
we stay at hotels. We stay at quite a lot. And I look them in the eye and I say,
That's right.
you tell me, is this place haunted?
And
then
I
I
stand
even
behind
tell
Em
them.
and I go, ask them. But tell them I didn't tell you to.
And I'll even say, I'm like, by the way, if the answer is yes, that's a good sign for me. Like, you're not going to scare me away.
We're not going to like leave. Right.
I'm not hoping you'll say no. I'm hoping you'll say yes. Like, just lie to me. Just lie. Like, and they'll be all fucking fishy. What was the one? What was the big, fancy, beautiful one? With the butler.
God.
The Fister?
Yeah. Was it the Fister? Which is weird. Isn't that?
Which
It
is
was
like,
the Fister.
yes, it's like notoriously haunted. And they're like, well, we can't say anything. We don't know. And I'm like, that,
We've
by the way,
never
sounds like
experienced anything.
that's a guilty fucking admission. Like, that's
Probably why. Like, I mean, listen, I'm not down for anyone losing their job. They probably have to say that. They probably wish they could tell you. You know?
I know, but
Like,
I've been like, just blink, just blink.
Blink
it.
once.
Blink it all. Breathe.
What if they're worried you're a secret shopper, a secret hotel guest, and you're gonna like report them to management?
Yeah, I'm like intel, and I'm like, if you blink, you're gonna get fired.
By the way, we look like the least qualified. Like we roll in like Crocs and like whatever the fuck. They definitely don't think we're like secret shoppers, but
no, but that's the point though, is that we're hidden so
exactly.
In plain sight.
Maybe we're so unlike what they're expecting that they're like, we don't want to tell these bozos anything about these ghosts.
I feel like I hate when, especially like the Fister, when it's notoriously haunted. So like, how dare you?
And it's like we all know. We all
it'd be
know.
one thing if I read an article about like the Hilton and like it nobody knew of it as like this big haunted place. If I was like, "Oh, I've heard it's haunted by like a random source."
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if they were kind of like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that for me." But if a place is on listicle after listicle of like
You're
top
right.
100 haunted places on
And
Earth,
you've done research on it personally.
yes, I'm like, don't please, like, do not patronize me. Like, at least say you've heard about the ghosts. Like,
Now you sound like me. Don't patronize me. I know there's a ghost here.
I think it's also because anytime I've asked that question, it's always to someone at the front desk who's a man, and I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Like,
Yeah.
why did I even waste my time asking you?
Why would I waste my time on you, a man?
Unless you're the butler, my digital butler who
The
brings me
digital
cake
butler who brought you
and a
cake.
simple text.
And that the second you said the one with the butler, I was like, oh God, the chocolate cake digital butler that Em found at the Pfister. Em recovered nicely. When that was an option, Em recovered from the rejection at the front desk pretty quickly. So
I did.
okay.
Well, I think they probably maybe the digital butler is like their big red nuclear code button of like, someone's mad. Just
Emergency, bring
send them the
cake.
butler. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know how we got there, but
I certainly don't.
okay. So I'm about to be done here, but I just want to say in 1973, this area, because it was a bunch of places and then escape room and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. In 1973, it was the like visitor center, like tourist information spot. And during this time, a visitor said, "Oh, I just saw like a lady in gray in the alley," and people lost their minds. It hit the papers.
Oh,
And people began speculating who on earth is this ghostly gray lady. And people thought maybe it was Augustine Steward's house. Maybe it was one of his wives throughout his life. Maybe it was a nun at the nearby church or at the graveyard who like was on her way home. Maybe it was the Steward seamstress. Apparently they had a seamstress. They don't know, or she could be like a boarder. She could have been someone who is not related at all. And through like the blueprint theory, maybe she lived there before they did or was on the property in some way.
Maybe she's a Roman.
Maybe she's an ancient Roman.
Just traipsing on through.
Yeah. And she's just invading the city.
With their little gray dress.
She was on her off day. She was just frolicking. In the 80s and 90s, there was a nightclub next door to this place. And the DJ heard some weird noises and ended up finding a woman dressed in gray. And he tried to talk to her, but she ignored him and left the room. And when he turned to look at her again, she was gliding away and had no bottom half.
Uh-oh.
Yikes. When I think about myself in that situation, my first thought would be like, oh, I need, like, they're falling. I need to help. And it's like, I don't know why that's my first thought, but I feel like everyone else just kind of stays stunned. I would feel like, oh, there's clearly air between you and the floor. You're about to timber. Like, I'm gonna get you. No,
But no, because you wouldn't see their legs, right?
I think I wouldn't even notice the no legs. I think I'd be like, you're midair, like, which means you're gonna.
But
hit
your
the
head's
ground.
still at a normal height.
I don't know if I have more than a split second to think about logic, but I am just trying to bond with you about what my experience would be.
I believe you. I'm trying to understand. Okay.
I think I'd try to scoop her up. I wouldn't even realize that she was not fully there. Or
okay.
I'd be like, oh, look out. And then
You know how I feel about torsos, so I just can't even wrap my head. I'd be like out of there.
I understand. I like maybe me too, but also maybe I don't know what I would do. I do think if I saw
you would be heroic.
Thank you.
And try to catch her.
I would try. And you know what? I'd end up just traumatizing myself because I'd be like, she just evaporated in my hands. What the hell was that?
You're like, I tried to save her.
Yeah. So anyway, people are trying to figure out who she is. People have all these theories, but nobody really knows. They're the only main lore people hear about is that she was in the Steward's home around the time they also died.
Right.
And since a lot of the population, 76% of the population or something went away, it's a good guess that she died from the plague. But to this day, tourists and locals still report seeing the gray lady and the little girl near the Augustine Steward House, also in the general Tombland Alley. And the girl seems to be more of an intelligent energy because she's like opening doors and playing tricks on people, whereas the gray lady has always seemed residual, like on the blueprint,
Mm,
on a
yeah.
blueprint. So, anyway, those are the two main ghosts of the area, and that's the Augustine Steward House.
Man, I just wonder. Good job, first of all. But I
Thank
also
you.
just wonder when it's something like, oh, we don't know who this lady was or what her deal is. Like, I just so want some psychic mediums to come in and like figure out why this woman is playing this route over and over. You know what I
Yeah, like
mean?
where's Chip Coffee? I
Like, Chip!
see. I'm not. I mean, obviously, I'm very pro medium, psychic, all this stuff. But I do wonder, how do we have so many ghosts that we don't know anything about, with so many people who have an ability? I don't. Not in a judgy way. I try to wrap my head around like how many ghosts are there. I feel like every place I've ever covered is we don't know, but someone had to have
Mhm.
been there that could have gotten some
I
intel
mean,
for
maybe they
us.
don't want to tell you, you know?
Maybe they don't want to tell me.
Or maybe psychic mediums just haven't opened up there, you know? They're just
Or
like,
maybe she was like a brooding teen. She's like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. You know, she like just she doesn't want the attention, but she kind of loves that she's the main character.
she
And
just
like,
keeps
that's all
walking past.
she's thinking, don't turn around or you'll lose it. Don't turn around. You'll lose the confidence. I do think that like there has to be one ghost out there who always dreamed of being the main character, and now every day people are like desperately searching for
Like,
them,
now it's
and
in the newspaper, you know, that
it's like you
somebody
made it,
saw her.
girl.
Girl, good for you.
Good for you. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Very
what her story
good.
is.
Very good. I mean, that was one of the most upsetting things I've ever heard about that child eating her parents, but you know, the rest was
Again,
great.
just a fun urban legend. There's no actual evidence of it, but
That's
it's
that
what
is
the kids
comforting.
say. It's what the kids
At least
say.
we can
So
say to ourselves, you know what? Maybe it didn't really happen that way, and
exactly.
spare ourselves the nightmares. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, I'm going to bring you more nightmares because we all know why we're here, why we're gathered here today to
Hmm.
celebrate not love.
Hell.
Hell. We are doing Dennis Rader Part 2. I would like everyone who has not heard the first half to please listen to that first because you're not going to understand. I mean, you're going to understand. But
And maybe take 3 more deep breaths. Because
yeah, first of all, take a breath. Second of all, take a sip of water. Third of all, go listen to Part 1 first because you're going to need it. Okay, let's just dive right in. The last thing, let me see. What was the last thing I talked about?
I don't
I
know.
talked about the poem he wrote
Oh,
to the newspaper that they thought was a classified Valentine's ad.
yeah, it was Shirley Locks or Shelley Locks.
Shirley Locks. I see, you got it.
Got it.
Nailed it. And he was angry that his letter didn't stir a reaction, so he wrote a letter to the news saying, hey, how many people does a guy have to kill around here to get my name in the paper or some national attention? So really just showing his hand that he just wants attention. And he also, with that, suggested a list of potential nicknames, our favorite being, I think, the poetic
Yeah.
killer or whatever the fuck.
Something that made 0 sense.
Something that was not clever. So after that, the police warned the public that this man was dangerous. There was a serial killer on the loose and he would strike again. And it seemed like Dennis's reign of terror suddenly abruptly stopped. He went quiet for 8 years. And let's get into part 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
So after killing Nancy Fox in 1977, Dennis seemed to take time to cool off, like I said, for several years, but that was not actually quite the truth because 2 years after Nancy Fox, in April 1979, Dennis actually attempted to find his next victim, who was 63-year-old Anna Williams.
63, has he done this to someone older before?
I believe this is the oldest
Okay.
that he has targeted so far.
Was he?
Yep.
I don't mean to immediately jump in and take away you answering things. Oh, yeah. Okay. Does he have an age preference, or is it just like any one?
So he definitely targets women first and foremost. But as with the Oteros, he will actively kill people who are also just there, like collateral damage almost.
Okay.
But the sexual thrill he gets from binding and torturing women and seeing their fear, and children, I will say, because, from Josephine Otero, who was 11, and he claimed, oh, I like women. I'm attracted to women with brown hair, and ugh, God, sicko.
Yeah.
So this is the first 63-year-old, but he does have quite a range of ages that he targets. But typically the main target is women that he believes he can break into their home.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
So he targets 63-year-old Anna Williams. He broke into her house while she was away at a square dance.
Wow.
I don't know why that
if it
makes me
weren't
laugh.
so sad, that the comedy just writes itself there.
I know. It's like,
Mm.
I don't know. It's just one bright spot in a terrible whole story.
Mm-hmm.
But Anna was running late. He knew she was supposed to be coming home because, remember, he stalks his victims. He knows their routines. And so he's lying in wait inside her darkened home. But Anna is running late. She actually had stopped to visit her daughter on her way home. And this is, as far as we know, the only time this really happened. He got impatient and just got up and left.
Oh.
So by
wow.
the time Anna came home that night, she went to bed like normal, had no fucking idea that a serial killer had waited all
It's one of
evening
those moments
in
where
her
like
home.
it's one of those moments where now every time I feel safe, I'll be like, but was I did I
already
just
do that.
miss it?
But yes, I think that's very relatable. It's like, I feel comfortable. What's wrong? Yeah.
Yeah.
So she had no idea a serial killer had been hiding out in her house waiting for her until roughly 2 months later, when Dennis mailed Anna some of her own personal belongings that he had taken from inside her house.
Ew, he still found a way to be so violating.
Yes.
And also now she has to
Can't
panic
help
about
himself.
like, unless he wrote a note that I don't know about, it's like now she has to be paranoid about like, was this from like 3 days ago or a year ago? Or like, does he come here regularly? Was this one time? Is he here
That's
right
a good
now?
point.
Like the same type of energy of like, if you come home and someone broke into your house and you're like, it could happen again. Are they still
And
here?
you're like, are they still here? Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
So talk about chilling. He sent her own belongings from the house 2 months after he had broken in. And I presume 2 months later, maybe because then enough time has passed that probably there's no evidence they can really find, like his fingerprints are probably wiped off or whatever might have been there. Is he put some distance between it. But along with the items, he also sent Anna a special poem.
Oh, for fuck's sake, what? God, I'm already mad.
He sent it to the media as well. The title of the poem is, "Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear?"
Oh.
It's fucking creepy as shit. So I'm going to read it to you. "Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? 'Twas perfect plan of deviant pleasure so bold on that spring night. My inner feeling hot with propension of the new awakening season. Worn with inner fear and rapture, my pleasure of entanglement like new vines at night. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Drop of fear, fresh spring rain would roll down from your nakedness to scent to lofty fever that burns within. In that small world of longing, fear, rapture, and desperation, the game we play fall on devil ears. Fantasy, spring forth, mounts to storm fury, then winter clam at the end. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Alone, now in another time span, I lay with sweet enrapture garments across most private thought. Bed of spring moist grass, clean before the sun, enslaved with control, warm wind scenting the air, sunlight sparkle, tears and eyes so deep and clear. Alone again I trod in past memories of mirrors and ponder why for number 8 was not. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear?" The end.
So he did up his game from the last poem of
Yeah.
roses are red,
A
violets
little
are
bit.
blue. But
A little bit.
that's
There were a lot of spelling errors in there, I will say.
I'm sure he nailed spelling propension and entanglement, but
Entanglement.
that I see. Okay. I don't know exactly what he said. I feel like If I read it, I could dissect it a little faster, but that was a lot to process at
Yeah,
once.
yeah, it's a
I
lot of also it's a lot of just like blabbering. Like
what? Are you kidding me?
I know, hard to believe.
Um, I did hear him say like she was supposed to be number 8. Does that mean he's
Uh-huh.
admitting to 7 deaths?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I believe so. I'm terrible at math. So
Well,
but I believe
8
that
minus 1 is 7, girl.
I know, but I'm saying I'm terrible at like going back in my mind and adding up all the ones that we've
Oh,
covered from
oh.
last week. I'm like, I know what eight minus one is. Um,
Okay. I did just say, she's supposed to be 8, so there's 7, and you went, I'm really hard with numbers. I don't.
I'm sorry. I meant like I don't know if there are 7 because I'm trying to remember
I
like how
understand.
many there were in each. Because
I got you. I got you.
with survivors and all that, but I'm assuming this was admitting to the 8th. So yeah, very disturbing to receive this in the mail and think, oh, good, this man was waiting for me in my home while I was square dancing one day.
Yeah.
So another person finally, thank God, has escaped his wrath. But he mails this out, and of course, the media gets a hold of it. And at the time, Wichita only had 6 homicide detectives, and a retired detective later said in an interview, "We looked at the boxes and boxes of evidence and thought we're never going to be able to get through all of it." So it just felt like such an uphill battle. So they followed every lead they had, but continued to come up with nothing. And in 1979, 2 of those detectives were actually promoted, and because of that, they were taken off the case. So whatever like tenuous grasp they already had on Dennis Rader was now even more tenuous, was slipping.
Okay.
So years passed, and Dennis was quiet, but detectives and the public alike, lived with that constant knowing that the serial killer was still out there, even if he wasn't making headlines every day. He was still lurking, and so people still lived with that fear. Then in 1984, a new task force formed to tackle the case, and they called themselves the Ghostbusters.
Okay. Sure. Let's see where it takes us. Okay. No judgment.
So the Ghostbusters organized all of the evidence in the killings and eventually gathered DNA samples, which at the time was a promising new forensic technology. God, if only they knew how tremendously helpful DNA evidence would become. I mean, I'm sure some people knew, but
I'm sure there's
wow.
some like newspaper articles where people are still a little afraid of like advanced technology.
Sure.
And they're like, I don't know, this thing's just gonna put names on it. They're just gonna pick a name and you'll be a killer.
They're gonna clone me, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot of that, definitely. But they were able to at least get a few DNA samples, which was great news. But, they still were in the 80s. There was still not much they could do in the way of getting a profile, as far as a DNA profile, at least. In April 1985, Dennis killed again for the first time in like 8 years. So
Wow.
the better part of a decade, he has been laying low. He tried with Anna, but obviously, thankfully, that didn't happen. So as far as we know, he killed again for the first time since the 70s. So 53-year-old Maureen Hedge lived in the Park City suburb of Wichita, incidentally, a few doors down from Dennis Rader and his family.
Oh, okay. So easy target.
Yes. But also really risky,
Tougher target.
right?
Yeah.
Because she's right down the street and knows you,
But also, well, yes. Also, I imagine the cops are going to like knock on every door and be like, do you know anyone who didn't like her?
Exactly. It feels like you're just like honing in.
But is like his MO not to be like so narcissistic? And one thing, he can get away with it, but 2, desperately wanting to like be involved in this crime and like.
You're right. You're 100% right. And also like desperately loves the feeling of like being someone that like people trust, like his neighbor who sees him every day, and then like turning on them and making.
But you know what? It's the perfect setup for him to bring the party to him. Gross, but I don't know another phrase for that. But because he knows that now he gets to sit in his own home and neighborhood and hear everyone around him talking about it for the next few days.
Yeah, you're onto it, because that is definitely what happens.
Like he has to be eating it up. Like he finally gets to, and for for being so rejected the first time from the newspaper where nobody talked about it. He thought it was going to make waves. Like
Mhm.
there are all these times where like it fell flat for him, and he's like,
Mhm.
if I game the system and I literally bring the death here,
You're
nobody
like
cannot talk about
forcing
it.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
forcing your family or neighbors to discuss it right in front of you.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a really good point. So Maureen was a very kind woman. She was a widow. She shared the block with the Raiders for 30 years. So he's known her
Oh,
for
so it's his
30 years.
friend.
It's basically like an acquaintance, like a neighbor that you are familiar with, you know?
Yeah.
I would say they're friends, but they're friendly,
They're
definitely. And
constants.
yeah, and his kids also knew her. And we know this from his daughter, Carrie, who has said, you know, we would wave hi to her every day when we passed on the sidewalk. Like we saw this woman all the
Oh,
time.
so sad.
It is. So on April 27th, 1985, Maureen was eating dinner with her boyfriend, and then they decided to play bingo throughout the evening.
Precious.
The whole time, they were unaware that Dennis was already inside her home waiting for her.
Oh, fuck. I don't know why I didn't see that coming.
I know, but it's every time it makes my blood run cold. So there's a website called survivingbtk.weebly.com that does a really good job outlining all the different victims and how Dennis Rader went about each of these crimes. So I'm going to paraphrase from their site because they just put so much detail in. So basically, here's how this timeline went down. Dennis Rader, his son was in the Cub Scouts. He was at a Cub Scout camping trip. Some say meeting, some say camping trip, but most sources
Event.
I've heard was a camping trip. And he told everyone he had a headache. He needed to go get some medication. So he left, went to his car. He was near a bowling alley. So he went inside the bowling alley, bought a beer, swished the beer around in his mouth, and then spit it out. Purposefully spilled some of the beer on his clothes. He wanted people around to see him drinking a beer, like I guess as an alibi.
Okay.
So he poured it on his shirt. Next time
Okay.
I spill on myself, I'm just going to say it's my alibi. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
He then, because his car was parked there, he then called a cab pretending to be drunk and told the driver to take him home to Park City. Because remember, he lived there.
Hmm.
Once he got to the neighborhood, he got out of the cab and instead of going home, walked to Maureen's house. He saw her car and assumed she was home, so he cut the phone line like usual and he quietly opened her back door to sneak in. Now, what he didn't realize is no one was actually home at that point, so instead he waited in her bedroom until he saw a car pull into the driveway. And that's when Maureen and her boyfriend walked into the house with big plans to play bingo, you know?
Hmm.
So Rader waited in the bedroom closet until 1 a.m. when the man left.
Wow. What the hell happened to his kid at the Boy Scout situation?
He
But
just told them, I'm have a headache. I'm gonna head out. And
oh, right. Okay.
they just assumed he went home, I guess.
Hmm.
And you know, if as I'm quite positive it was a camping trip, his wife thinks he's at this camping trip.
Right.
The campers think he's at home, you know. So he waits in the bedroom closet until 1 a.m. so that the man leaves and Maureen goes to sleep. He then comes out of hiding, turns on the bathroom light, jumps on top of Maureen, and chokes her to death. Once she had died, he dragged her body outside into the trunk of her own car. He then drove to the church where he was council president. And because he was council president, he had keys and
Right.
was given full access to the church. So he put black plastic over the windows of the church so no one could look inside. He brought her body to the basement of the church and photographed the body in multiple different poses before putting her body back in the trunk of the car and dumping it in a ditch along a dirt road near their neighborhood.
Hmm. Oh my
So Maureen
God.
was discovered 8 days later on the side of the road. She had a pair of knotted pantyhose laying nearby. Despite the pantyhose, which Dennis had actually used in previous murders, investigators did not immediately connect Maureen's death to BTK because his MO was not usually to remove people from their house
Hmm.
after killing them. So he had changed things up. And this time he changed things up again because he did not take credit for this crime. He did not write to the media to take credit. Probably because, like you were mentioning, it was so close to home. It was a
Yeah.
much riskier one this time. So he
I feel like that was like a
changed it up
negotiation with
enough.
it was a negotiation with himself of like, I'll bring the story to me, but I have to be even more discreet than usual or
Yes,
something.
yes, there's a bigger risk
Hmm.
involved. And interestingly, like you had mentioned, people in the area were totally beside themselves, including his own young daughter, Carrie,
Right.
who was petrified that their lovely, sweet, friendly neighbor had just been brutally murdered.
It's one of
And
it's I wonder, sorry, I keep interrupting you. It's so fucked up of
no,
me.
no, go ahead.
Is does he ever say anything, or does anyone say anything about like how was he aware of the trauma he was going to put on his kid, and he like almost even liked having the power over her, or was that something he hadn't considered and he's like, "Oh fuck, I didn't realize that
Uh,
I'm hurting
you
her."
know, I don't know because he lies a lot about how he's actually a decent guy. And so I don't really want to take any of
Sure.
that as truth necessarily. But what we do know from his daughter is that she was so petrified that she was, she started having nightmares. She talked to her mom and dad about how scared she was, and they both reassured her and said, "You are safe here." And her mother even told her, "Your father's right across the hall. No one can hurt you."
Oh.
And he told her, "I'll keep you safe," you know? Hugged her, said, "Nothing's gonna happen to you." And he probably believed it. He thought, "Well, I'm not gonna hurt her, so she'll be safe." In his
Mm,
twisted mind, that's probably how he rationalized that he was a good dad?
right. That's a good way to look at it. Cuz yeah, I was like, he didn't even, I wonder if he even considered his own family dynamic of how he, like, his selfish, I mean, there's other words to describe it too, but on top of it, like how selfish this was of like, you really wanted people to talk about you and talk about this murder and you wanted to bring it close to home. But did you consider that like your own home life would now, like, shocker, be affected by this? So,
I
anyway,
don't think he really cared. I mean, he was
yeah,
like, "You're fine, you're safe." And he knew he wasn't
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
kill
yeah.
her, so he thought, "Well, actually, you're in good hands,
Mm,
unfortunately, under our roof." I think that must be the way he, explained it away to
mm,
himself because he really does think he's like a decent guy at the end of the day, which is disturbing.
mm.
So, in late 1986, Dennis started stalking his next victim, and that was 28-year-old Vicky Wagerly, who was a married mother of two. He originally found this victim by parking across the street during a lunch break and hearing some piano music wafting through the air toward him. And he walked past her house and noticed that she was playing the piano, and he felt like she was almost performing for him. And he spent a lot of time planning and fantasizing about this attack. I know I mentioned it, I'm pretty sure last time, but he had these projects, quote unquote, that he would take extensive notes on, have the, layout of their house. He would plan, he would name them specific things, like quote unquote nicknames. And this was one of his projects. And so he fantasized for a while about this, about attacking her. And then on the morning of September 16th, 1986, Dennis decided to pose as a telephone repairman at the Wagerly house, and Vicky let him in to repair her phone line. Of course, as he is quote unquote repairing her phone line, he cuts the phone line,
Of course.
unbeknownst to her, which is at the time was a method of disabling the alarm system. Doesn't quite work that way anymore, thankfully. So he cuts the phone line and he attacks Vicky. Now, she fights back and she scratches and bruises Dennis, but he ultimately overpowers her and he strangles her to death and then takes the Wagerly family's car. So Vicky's husband Bill was on his way home for lunch and saw his own car driving away from his house.
Uh, Oh God.
But he noticed that the driver was not Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately he's like, something is up.
Right, right, right.
Dennis ditched the car in the meantime and escaped, and Bill got home and found his 2-year-old son just sitting alone in the house.
Oh
He's
God.
looking everywhere. He's like, Vicky, where are you? He can't find her. It takes him a while. He eventually looks around the bedroom and she had fallen on the other side of the bed, like where you
Yeah.
glancing in, you wouldn't see her. And he finds her there having been strangled to death. Of course, he calls 911. She's rushed to the hospital and later pronounced dead. Again, investigators at this point failed to connect Vicky's murder to the notorious BTK killings, and Dennis again did not take credit for the murder. So Bill Wagerly, her husband, was instead named the prime suspect of his wife's murder.
Oh God. Okay. I feel like I
Which
just keep saying, "Oh God, oh God."
I know, but talk about like a rough turn of fucking events. You find
Yeah.
your wife murdered in your house, and then,
And now you're the
understandably you're
prime
looked at, but now
suspect.
you're the prime suspect. Yeah.
Plot twist.
So, yeah, it's not good. Vicky's and Bill's 2 children basically grew up listening to classmates say your dad murdered your mom, and they didn't
I
know any better. Like they
didn't
just
even think
kind of
about
had to
that.
live with this fear that like their own father might have done this. Um and he also failed 2 polygraph tests, which there's a reason polygraph tests are not admissible evidence,
Hmm.
in court because
But it also, to some people, it does look fishy.
it looks fishy. So people remained convinced that he had murdered his wife, and they didn't have enough to fully charge him, but they refused to clear his name. So that's why these rumors kept spreading, and the children went through a whole lot of hell because many of their classmates, their friends, weren't even allowed to hang out with them because local parents thought Bill was a murderer, like a violent murderer. And teachers also believed this and spread rumors in the schools. So, Brandon, who was 2 and the one who was home when his mother was killed, later remembers his grandmother telling him at one point that she had thought BTK killed his mom, but being a
Really?
little kid, he didn't know what that meant. So he just kind of lived with this weird lingering fear, like
Yeah.
his grandma just offhandedly saying like this man murdered your mother. So, for nearly 2 decades, this accusation would hang over Bill Wegerly's head and follow the whole family wherever they went. In early 1991, Dennis picked his final victim, as far as we know, at least. On January 19th, he left another Boy Scout meeting and
Hmm.
unceremoniously threw a cinder block through the sliding door of 62-year-old Dolores Davis's home.
Wow.
He obviously frightened the shit out of her, and he tried to calm her down by telling her that he just needed to tie her up while he stole some supplies in her car, but he wasn't going to hurt her. And so he said, if you comply, I will leave you alone. And, he loved to do this to play to
Yep.
people's uh, naivete, or not even naivete, but like trusting nature, I guess. So he tells her this. She, sort of has to believe him. What else can she do? And
Right.
he ties her up and strangles her to death. He then put Dolores's remains into her car and hid her body at a nearby park. But he later returned to her house in his own car to move her body and hide Dolores under a bridge, which is where she was eventually discovered. And then, just like that, he stopped killing for years. There was absolute silence from the notorious serial killer that haunted Wichita. And according to the FBI, during this time, he was engaging in, quote, autoerotic activities as a substitute for his killings. So he
Oh,
did a
so maybe
lot
he was
of.
guilty?
No, it was more. Well, I don't know if it was. I don't think it was really guilt necessarily, but I mean, my guess, and this is a total guess, but my guess is that he's now aware of all the DNA that's going on,
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
he's trying to lay low because his way, what he's doing at this point typically is he is binding himself and putting women's masks on and tying himself up and taking photographs, and that's kind of his fix, so
Mhm.
to speak. He wears, women's clothing and a mask, and the photos are frightening because these old-timey masks are so creepy.
Oh,
It's like these
really?
old, creepy, like, porcelain masks.
Oh, porcelain? Oh,
Ooh.
shit. I was thinking like
I
a
don't know if
BDSM
it's
thing.
I don't know if it's porcelain, but it's like a
Like a
creepy
Phantom of the
face.
Opera?
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. I don't know.
Ew.
I'm gonna send you a photo because it's really scary. Oh,
Like a
it's worse than I
like a
remembered.
masquerade mask? Is that what it is?
Okay, did you watch Mindhunter? Because
No.
one of the scariest is that he's featured pretty heavily in that series, which is really good, folks, if you haven't seen it. But I'm gonna send you a picture of like how they did it in the movie or in the show.
Okay.
It's really scary. I just want to warn you, Eva, if you're
Okay.
listening, jump scare alert, okay? Just be aware. But this is how they portrayed it in the movie, and it's almost exactly what the actual
Oh,
mask.
fuck me.
Is that
It's
not
you
the
know,
creepiest thing you've ever seen?
do you know what that is? That's like the purge masks.
Oh God, I knew it was something bad. Here's an actual photo of the mask that they found, and this was found, I believe near Vicky's body. It was found near one of the bodies.
So he had left it there?
Yeah, he had left it there, and it was collected as evidence.
Ew, and it's like people colored. It's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
not
it's
even
like
white. It's
flesh
like
toned.
skin.
Yeah, it's actually like really okay. There's one more. I mean, I don't even know if we can put these on Instagram because there's one more that's really scary. But this is
Okay.
kind of. I mean, I'm gonna show it to you. Eva,
Okay.
don't look. Don't look if you don't want to look. This is an example of the type of photos he would be taking of himself.
Okay.
So this is him
Okay.
in a mask and wig and bindings.
I'm laughing at our nerves. Like it's not funny, but like
It
that
is
really
so scary. Like, oh my God. Oh
and
my
like
God.
so then he would like go to town on himself with this? Like he
Yeah.
would like all right, like truly everyone's
And
got
honestly,
a thing.
that alone, it's like fine, whatever. You tie yourself up, man, you go for it.
Yeah, have a
You
good
wear a
time.
women's mask, like fuck yeah. But it's like knowing that this man did this to other women and children and
Yeah.
God,
Well, do you
like
know, I
that's
mean,
what makes it so fucked up, obviously.
what freaks me out a little bit and like not, you know, please understand where I'm coming from because the words
I
spill
think
out
I
and it sounds
do.
weird.
I'm pretty sure I do.
But it seems like I know you said he was wearing masks at the crime scene too, as like maybe as a way to disguise himself. But here it looks like he was
No,
using the mask.
he did not wear masks at the
He
crime
put them
scene.
on the women.
He either put
Sorry.
them on the women if he put them on himself typically, but he would occasionally put them on the women when he was like posing them after they were dead as like
Okay.
part of his
Because
fantasy, I guess.
my first thought when I see this picture is that he's using the mask and like dolling it up with makeup and everything to try to literally look like a woman so he can imagine it's a woman so he could still get off
Yes.
to it. Okay.
That's why he's doing it on himself. Yes, he's
Gotcha. I
essentially
didn't know if
he's
he had like a
reenacting-
cross-dressing thing or something too.
I mean, I think it's maybe a mix.
Okay.
But all we know essentially is that he's sort of reenacting the crimes on himself
Right.
and almost imagining as though he were his own victim, as if he were a woman. He would wear pantyhose, he would tie himself up, he would wear this mask and a wig. And there's something about just old-timey masks. I mean, guys, picture like those old-timey porcelain dolls with just creepy faces. Like it's an upsetting mask, like in and of itself, whether it's a serial killer's or not. What I think also really bothers me is that as I'm looking this up, there are a lot of people on Reddit who sell like replicas, which is
Ew.
like, stop that.
Yeah,
What
I'm
the
not for that.
fuck?
Also,
No.
one of the things I don't like about this picture specifically that you sent me is that I mean he looks even more evil because the eyes are totally black.
Yeah, the eyes are the eyes.
And
Yeah,
also
you
it's like
guys-
really eerie
yeah.
too because he like if he's trying to replicate one of his victims, then that means I'm looking at essentially what his victims look like.
Exactly. It's
So, it's
so
just many
dark
layers.
because it's like that's what he was doing to people. That's what he wanted. That's what he was
Ugh.
fantasizing about, and that's what he's actually doing to people.
Can you imagine
unwilling
like
people.
like his kid walking in though and seeing him taking pictures like this? It'd be like
I know.
how do you even explain that? How do you
No clue.
I don't even know.
I mean, that goes right back to the compartmentalization of it. Like
Yeah.
he could be doing this in the basement, and his family thought he was doing taxes.
Right, right.
It's just really crazy. So I show you that just to give you an idea of like, this is what he did to get by almost during
Sure.
the times that
I think you're dead on that he discovered that DNA was becoming a real thing and he
that's
needed
my
to.
guess. That's like my gut because it doesn't really strike me. I mean, even he admitted it earlier, like serial killers cannot change their MO or stop themselves, you know?
Or even that, like
Yeah.
I feel like a serial killers, like their usual in general MO is that eventually they get bored of the level they're at and keep getting worse and
And
worse and worse.
escalate.
And
Yeah.
this is a de-escalation because now he's not hurting anybody. He's doing it to himself. I know. I'm sorry. Your little
Sorry.
nose.
I'm muted.
But no, like I feel like he's at least it's de-escalating because now he's not harming anybody. He's now only focusing it on himself as a way to look at pictures and he's not doing anything
Right.
active. Like it feels like there's no going backwards unless something is scaring you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the only other thing that people point to is that he was really busy, you know, with his job with his kids. And I feel like we have also seen that with serial killers where the times when their children are young or they get their partner gives birth or what have you tend to be quieter.
Mhm.
Like almost like they're like literally too busy to go on these sprees. So that's the other thing that people point to because he was now working as a compliance officer for local government. He had 2 kids at home. He was volunteering with the church, with Boy Scouts. People think he just kind of started getting in the routine of his life, and
Right.
for now, these autoerotic photos were enough for him, and so he just laid low. And I mean, again, this is not proven, but it's my guess that he probably also was like, oops, sorry. He probably also knew like, uh-oh, other people are getting caught. Like other serial killers that I've looked up to are getting caught with DNA
Right.
evidence. Like maybe I should be careful. I don't
No,
know.
I'm
That's
on
just
your side
my
with the
insight.
DNA. I kind of call bullshit on like he was too busy because I think it's a lot more time efficient to drive to someone's house, kill them and not even worry about cleaning up the dead bodies than to do whatever this is of like
Yeah, it
getting
seems
a whole
odd,
outfit
definitely.
together, putting the makeup on, putting the hair on, getting yourself situated in a chair, looking
Especially
like
if
you're
that's
binding,
not
setting up a
as
camera.
much of a thrill for you as actually doing it to other people, you know? Like if that's
Yeah.
not getting your rocks off in the same way, then like
Yeah.
why de-escalate?
He's
Yeah.
he's totally doing a plan B because something was going on. That's my
That's kind
feeling.
of how my how I understand it. I mean, obviously I'm no expert, but it just kind of makes sense to me. Um but so now we fast forward essentially to January 11th, 2004. Oh, and I want to be clear too. We don't necessarily know he didn't hurt anyone during that time. It's just what he's been linked to didn't happen in that time span. So there could be other people and
And
might well be other people.
And during so BTK, what did he this it might be a stupid question at the end of 2 whole episodes, but like what was his main method of torture? I mean, not that this isn't fucking torture, but like usually when I think of torture it's like additional
You
intense
know,
severe pain.
I thought about that as well, and that's why for the longest time, Em and I had even talked about like I mean there are a couple stories we don't want to cover because they're just too much for us at a certain point in time, and um the toy box killer is the one I just don't ever want to go near. And I thought this would be one of them as well because the torture element is so hard for me to deal with in stories like this. But I think the BTK, I mean, from what I've gathered, or at least when I've mulled this over, because I've had the same question as you, I almost think because he came up with all those other nicknames that it didn't necessarily even
Mm.
like the Wichita Hangman, but he didn't really hang people. He
Mhm.
only hanged one person. So it's like it almost feels like he's just kind of finding words that he likes or that sound good
Also,
together in his
maybe
mind.
it gave him wiggle room to what was the word you just said, to escalate. It gave him room where
Maybe yeah,
things.
maybe that was part of what he thought would end up happening. And another important part to this as well. With the I'm not sure if I mentioned this in part 1, but when the Oteros were killed, remember how I said hadn't realized how difficult it was to kill somebody until he was doing it?
Mhm.
When investigators came upon the crime scene later, it was believed that he had been resuscitating the family and then strangling them again into unconsciousness as
Oh
a
shit.
torture tactic. But in reality, they found out later that it was only because he didn't realize how hard it was to actually kill someone. And so his victims kept waking up. And he said, I was
Right.
not doing that intentionally. I really was just trying to end their lives.
I'm just trying to
It
kill
wasn't
them, okay?
torture.
Like,
I
get
know.
off my
I'm sorry. I'm not
case.
that bad of a guy, right?
Yeah.
So even then, it's like the torture might have made sense to people back then, but now that he's explained that wasn't intentional, then I don't know where I mean, of course, it's all torturous in the way that
Yes.
he's
Yes.
sexually assaulting and murdering people. But other than that, yeah, torture doesn't seem to really. It's not the kind of torture that you expect with a serial killer, I guess, you know?
Right.
So anyway, all we know is at this point he is laying low.
Mhm.
On January 11th, 2004, and now this is 13 years since Dennis's last known murder, the Wichita Eagle ran a story about the upcoming 30-year anniversary of the Otero family murders and the unsolved BTK killings that plagued Wichita. And Dennis read the article, and as he's reading the article about himself, and I'm sure jacking off or whatever he's doing, he discovers that someone is planning to write a book about his murders. Oh
Oh
God!
shit. Okay.
Imagine his delight.
Delight and fear all at the same time.
Yeah, it's almost like I imagine there was a thrill and also just like a shit because he was not happy. He wanted to be talked about, but he was not happy that this would be told without his own input.
I
He
love that all of
wanted
a sudden he knows what consent is. But he
right. He's like, you can't do that.
he's like, I want you to
That's a
talk about me,
great
but I don't
point.
want you to like pry. Jesus.
Yeah, but this is my business. Stay out of
Yeah.
my business. And he wanted the story to be as accurate as possible. He's like, if you're going to write a book about me, it's going to be accurate. You're going to know why I chose my victims, how I operated. And he felt such a sense of like pride and ownership over
Mhm.
his despicable acts that he didn't think anyone else should get a right to tell his story except him, which is basically what you're saying. He
Mhm.
was like, you don't have consent from me. It's like, well, in
It's
that
like,
case.
what are you complaining about? It's not like I'm strangling you to death.
Yeah, yeah. Here, I'll mail some of the things out of your underwear drawer back to you, asshole.
Right.
But okay, sure, I don't have your consent. So Dennis was also, in his own words at this point, bored, which
Yep.
makes me think he was really intentionally laying low because he had apparently long considered resurrecting BTK. And now that the 30-year anniversary was coming up, he's like, okay, it's my time to shine again, baby. So he decided to, boot up the old, I don't know what, the old
Thing is,
ropes, the old poetry typewriter.
right.
I have no idea. But he decides he's going to get back on his old game. And he also knew that authorities and the media believed that BTK was either dead or in prison, which gave him like an edge because they didn't think he was still out there active because he had seemingly vanished, which usually means that the perpetrator has been arrested for another crime or has died.
Mhm.
But no, he wanted them to know he is still out there living his life. So in March, he mailed evidence to the Wichita Eagle of Vicky's murder, including her driver's license, which he had stolen, and a photo of her body.
Mm.
So that's a startling thing to get as the journalist at the Wichita Eagle.
Yeah. Can you
30
imagine?
years
Jesus.
after the Otero murders, now you're getting. He's like, I'm back. Yikes. So also remember, Bill Wagerly is still, in the eyes of the public, guilty for killing his wife.
Oh, right.
And it's been a
30
long
years?
time.
Or 20
30
years?
years was the Otero. I believe it was, God,
Like 20 years?
13? No, 20 years? 14 years? I think a decade and a half
A long ass time. Yeah.
yeah, it's been a while. And so he's finally exonerated among his peers, Bill Wagerly. And in May of that year, Dennis sends a letter to a local television station called, It's spelled Kake, cake, cake TV.
Sure.
And this letter is so fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I just can't. I just had to go look up like the actual contents. I just
Okay.
knew it would be stupid, and it sure is.
Okay.
Because he decides he's going to start helping with the book writing process. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's all I needed to hear.
I know. Well, I read that and said, I need to know
It's like,
more.
what a
I need
martyr. He's going to be helpful. Thank you.
He's
About
like,
his
I'm a
own
ghostwriter.
experience.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually apparently was a fan of Cake TV. Like he watched their morning show like every day. So he decides they're the ones who are going to get his special letter, which is, by the way, full of chapter title ideas for his autobiography.
Lucky them.
Here's lucky them. Here's some chapter titles. Are you ready?
Oh, okay.
A serial killer is born. Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Dawn. Chapter 3. Fetish. Chapter 4. Fantasy world. 5. The search begins. 6. BTK's haunts. Next is PJs, which is how he abbreviated projects. Because at first I thought, oh, jammy jams. No.
Fucking
PJs means projects.
Does he think it's spelled pro space Jex?
I mean, probably BTK does. Remember, BTK doesn't know how to spell.
Dumb space ass. Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. Dumb space. What a DA, you know? The next chapter is called MO, all capital, MO hyphen ID hyphen ruse. Now, BTK's choice of MOID ruse probably relates to his use of fake IDs, such as like the telephone company employee ID he had referenced in the past, as well as his MO. And in all probability, he used these like fake ID badges or whatever to get into people's homes. And that was his ruse, so to speak. So that's probably why he named it that. Then he's got hits, treasured memories, final curtain call, dusk. And then the final chapter is called Will There Be More?
You know, he thought he fucking ate by putting dusk when he put dawn
I
earlier.
was about to say, do you think he was like, oh, fuck yeah.
He went, that one's going to give him chills. And like, you know, I think here's my being able to see right through him, I think. But first of all, my first thought was just write your own fucking book. You clearly want to be a writer. And then in my head, I was like, he does want to be a writer. He really wanted poems to be like part of his thing. He really so
he thinks he's a great writer.
So I think first of all, he wants notoriety wherever he can get it. He wants to be talked about. He wants to be in control. But on top of that, like, it must have been a real threat to him for a different writer to say, oh, I'm going to take control of your story. And the one thing he wants to always be in charge of is like in control of the narrative. And now someone's literally going to write a story and be in control of it. A
narrative.
On top of him, and he knows that book will do well for a writer that isn't him, and he probably feels threatened with his identity as a writer, and he's like, well, let me step in and let me be the writer before you get the chance to be the writer. Like, I think his world is actually being a lot more rocked than we're aware of.
And I think you're totally right. Like, this clearly shook him. Like, I imagine when he read the article, he was like, oh yeah, they're talking about me. And then the thing about the book probably sent him over the edge. Like, no. That's too far. That's my story. And speaking of his writing, I want to also add that I misspoke and gave him too much credit because the last title was not I thought I made a typo. No. He made a typo. It's not Will There Be More? It's Will There More? ?
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Which, like, you can't even write your own chapter titles right.
I feel like this is definitely like we're saying, like, he's probably totally shaken by it, but it's purely for ego. Like imagine a really bad person also just wants to make it in Hollywood, and then they're like, yeah, we've seen your audition tapes, but now we're actually going to have someone else star as you in a movie about you, and you're not even invited to try out for it.
That's how he sees it.
He would literally, like, he would fucking blow a gasket.
Oh, and he did. He really did. He was like, I'll write it better. So he wrote those really shitty chapter titles and sent them in, I guess, trying to impress everybody. But it didn't stop there. He also sent a page of like the fake IDs he had used. And he sent a homemade word search puzzle along with this chapter title list.
It's literally, if we're still going with the Hollywood
Yeah.
an
Analogy.
analogy, it's like she finally, like, I'm thinking about like this actress who desperately wants to make it, but she's like not good enough to play herself in a movie
Yeah.
about herself. She found a way to sneak onto the stage. She's finally like, she's just trying to make it as like a background character in her own movie, and so now she's like baking cupcakes for the main character who's going to play her. Like, she's kissing ass, being like, what do you need from me, what do you need from me, how about I tell you, how about I help you with your character, how about I help you, blah 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 blah, blah. Just so maybe I'll also, get invited to the red carpet. It's like, shut up. Like, first of all, like, I love that he's fully unraveling at the thought of not being in control. I love it.
No, you're 100% right. And it's to the point that he's so unhinged that his word search, which, by the way, the words to search for include prowl, details, and fantasies.
And none of those he spelled right, I'm sure.
Probably not. So, like, no one won the word search. Yeah. But at the time, investigators didn't even realize that Dennis had put his street address number and his own last name in the word search as like a secret.
Oh, what a good secret. Ooh,
yeah.
you
idiot.
You fooled me.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the numbers 6220 were in there, and Rader. So they didn't know, because they didn't know who he was. So it's like they wouldn't have known, but he thought he was so clever,
Yeah.
But as he described it when he sent this to, I mean, he really, like you said, thought he was doing them a favor, because he considered the TV station Cake TV his friends. He really felt like he had a kinship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And every night that they would report, they knew he was watching. There have been, one of the anchors was like, genuinely, she was really traumatized by the whole experience. This gives me chills. At the end of one segment, the anchors made, one of the anchors, the one that I mentioned, made an offhanded comment about having a cold. And 2 days later, a postcard showed up from BTK saying, sorry about Susan's and Jeff's colds.
Ew, Christine.
Yeah. Now they know he's watching them every night and is like taking notes. And she's a young woman. Like,
oh my God.
And one more thing I want to add, when I watched this, anchor talking about how traumatizing this whole experience was, he once went on a tour of the TV station with a tour group and got to watch a live news broadcast. And they didn't know that
really
until
likes this news station.
Until I know. Until they went back and looked at the logs, and Dennis Rader once ages ago had been on a tour of the TV station. Ooh. Just too close. So in June, he sent a letter to the police. Then he started leaving packages in public places like libraries and grocery stores. So this is now just like a game, right? Like, he's playing his own little scavenger hunt. In the packages were trophies of his, which were stolen items from victims' houses. And in January 2005, a letter to the police led investigators to a Home Depot, of all things, where Dennis had left a message in a cereal box in the bed of an employee's pickup truck.
Oh, okay.
And the joke was like, serial killer, haha.
Ha ha ha.
I know it probably goes above all our heads because he's such a fucking comedic genius, but
this is where I need you to pull out your classic, I'm just a little confused, can you explain it to me?
I'm sorry, can you explain it a little slower, since I'm apparently too stupid to understand you?
Such a dummy. I'm so stupid. Yeah.
So the message in the cereal box asked whether BTK could, this is great. He asks police whether BTK could relay messages via a computer floppy disk without being traced. And he said, if that is the case, I want you to run an ad in the paper that reads, Rex, it will be okay. And then I'll know I can send you information via floppy disk and you won't be able to trace me. And so the police ran a classified ad in the newspaper that read, Rex, it will be okay. Contact me, P.O. Box, first 4 reference numbers at 67202. And that was how they said, here, this is where you can send your floppy disk. Guess why he named himself Rex, first of all?
Because he thinks he's a big scary dinosaur? What?
Because it's 3 letters and it sounds like sex.
Oh, right. Oh, God. Okay.
Mm-hmm. another disturbing thing that just because Rex, yes, sounds like a dog's name. He also called his down there
Mhm.
Sparky.
Is he
Is
o
I'm not
what? I
sick.
don't even know what to say with that. That was just that's it's not even that sounds like like a really bad joke that your like really out of touch uncle would try to make, and everyone would just kind of sit in silence and be like,
Just like
"What did you just say?"
what the fuck is he
It's like,
saying?
what am I supposed to do with that? I have no idea what to do with that.
Ugh.
It's just I
Yeah.
don't like it.
Yeah.
That's I can tell you that.
No, no, it's very bad. Ugh, so that's what I don't even know why you would tell people that. Like, just keep that to yourself, you know?
Yeah, it's not even like
So,
if you're gonna tell people what you called it, you better have a fucking kick-ass name. Like that's the
yeah, you better be proud. I guess he
honestly
was
the
proud of it.
dumbest. The
It's
dumbest
really
name.
stupid. I just thought of that because of Rex, you know.
You
So
could okay, never mind. Keep
police
going. Sorry.
run a run a classified that says Rex, it will be okay. Here's the PO box. Of course they're fucking lying. Like,
Mhm.
what does he think? He literally thinks they're gonna be like, oh shoot, yeah, we can track you via floppy disk, so I guess you
Yeah,
better not
right.
send one. Like, what kind of moron thinks like, oh, they'll tell me the truth?
He really must
So
have
of
I mean,
course,
he so far though has like really played into people's naivete. So maybe he
that's fair.
thought that like, oh, well everyone's stupid compared to me because I'm a big fat narcissist, you know?
Yeah, this is where it shows. Like, this is where he really starts to unravel because of how full of himself he is. Because, of course, they're fucking lying. And then Dennis mails them a fucking floppy disk in February, and investigators just open it up, check the metadata, and see that there's a folder called Christ Lutheran Church and Park City Library with fucking Dennis's username as the person who had accessed it last. Dennis
This is
from Christ Lutheran Church.
the irony is that he took a 30-year break because he was scared of the new technology and the new
Mm-hmm.
technology won. As soon as he
The
went back
floppy
into it.
disk.
As soon as
The
he
new
went back
technology
into
being
it.
a floppy disk, which I feel like everyone listening, if there is anyone listening under the age of 20, is like, what is that?
I know, but at the time it was like, oh, you're scared of like advancements, and like it still kicked your ass 5 seconds
It
into you
kicked
trying
your
anyway.
ass, dummy. Can't even do your own research to determine if someone can
Right.
trace a floppy disk. So anyway, the investigators simply searched for Dennis at Christ Lutheran Church on the internet, and Dennis Rader pops right up. He's the church's president. And they're like, ding, 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 that's probably our guy. So they contact the pastor to ask who used the church computer, and they sent a list, and Dennis Rader for sure was on it. So Dennis became their prime suspect for obvious reasons. But they decided the best step was to link him to the DNA evidence that they had preserved from the 80s by the
Hmm.
Ghostbusters task force. Remember them?
Actually, you know what? I said I would wait to see how I felt about them by the end. Go Ghostbusters.
I know, right? It's like, okay, I see you. I see what you're doing here. You know what? You've won our hearts by the end. And I'm proud of you. So they saved all this evidence and they were like, you know what? We want to match him to the DNA, but we don't want to go straight to Dennis because if we say we want your DNA, like he's going to know
Sure.
that we're on to him, obviously. And they didn't have enough evidence to outright arrest him without that DNA match. So they were kind of nervous because if they quote unquote trigger him and say like, yeah, we're onto you by getting his DNA sample, they're worried he's going to strike again and like
Right.
just, go on another spree. So they didn't want to reveal their hand. So instead they decided to seek out a familial match and see if they could link his DNA that way. They discovered that Dennis's daughter Carrie, this is where it's a little dicey, recently underwent a pap smear at the hospital.
Okay.
And so the hospital turned over a sample of her DNA under a
Oh.
judge's order from the procedure, which in my mind is she had no idea about this. I find this pretty
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
pretty invasive and
Violating, yeah.
violating. Violating's the right word.
Was this
So
because back then like the rules were still being like created about
yes,
DNA
I
and
think so. I think
yeah.
a judge just said, "Yeah, get the DNA," and they said, "Okay," and
My first
nobody they
thought
did.
my first thought was do the Law and Order thing where you give them a can of soda and when they drink it now you've got their DNA.
I know, right? And like nowadays, they're often just following them through the mall and getting their trash out of the
Right.
getting their PF Changs out of the garbage, you know? But basically, they got the pap smear, which seems, again, very invasive, and she didn't know about it until later, which was upsetting. But lo and behold, they got a match to BTK's DNA. So on February 25th, 2005, detectives finally took Dennis Rader into custody, and they said, "Would you be surprised to know that the father of your daughter is BTK?" Because of the DNA
Uh-huh.
family match.
Uh-huh.
And after a short silence, an FBI agent in the room said, "Tell us who you are." And Dennis said, "I'm BTK. You got me."
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
With dusk.
Dusk. Will there more? No. That's my answer. The chapter just goes, no. Fucker, never again. So, of course, at this point, ding, 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 they got him. Time to unravel decades of this man's fucking despicable acts. And a search of his house revealed some disturbing things. These aren't necessarily like crucial to the story, but I just find them so disturbing that I'm going to include them. One thing they discovered was a stress ball in his house. You know the brand Life is Good?
Mm-hmm.
That was like big in the 2000s. And everyone, I mean, I don't know, everyone had a t-shirt, I feel like, from vacation with like,
Everyone
life is
did.
good. Yeah, I definitely did. But he had a stress ball that said life is good. It turns out he would use that at home to strengthen his hands for strangulation.
Ooh, life is good is like, we do
Right?
not condone this.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, of all phrases to have on
Yeah.
your tool
Life
to
is good.
practice taking lives. So they also found, of course, meticulous notes of his past projects. A lot of those he
PJs.
kept at work. His PJs, I'm so sorry. Yes. And they basically had to go around telling people, hey, you were gonna be a victim of BTK. Like, he had his eyes on you, or he had already targeted you. Like, he
Oh
was
my
writing
God.
about your daily routine, which is just chilling. Um, just bizarre. Like, he had all these unfinished quote unquote PJs, you know, that he had never really gone through with, and they had to go around and tell people, like, I mean, good news, bad news, you
Yeah.
know?
But it's also like if he was trying to like not, he was still on his hiatus of killing, maybe like all he had left was just observing people and he got really
Yeah,
weird
maybe he was
into
just
it.
doing the like stalking part
Yeah. It was like all
and
he could do that was
fantasizing.
left.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's probably true. So the arrest went public the following day, which I imagine I don't totally remember. I vaguely remember this time, but I was not in my true crime era yet. Um, the arrest went public, and authorities told the nation they'd finally caught BTK, who again they had assumed was either dead or in prison, and they'd never know. So of course, a wave of relief passed through Wichita, but people who were close to Dennis and considered him a friend were shocked. We talked a lot about the, you know, compartmentalizing of Dennis Rader and BTK, and he pulled that off in a lot of instances. So Paul Cars.
What? Try again?
I'm so sorry. Paul Carlstedt, who knew Dennis for 30 years, could not believe, like, he just could not reconcile that these were the same person, which must
Yeah.
just be the most trippy feeling, like, of you. How do you trust yourself after that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he had known Dennis for 30 years, and he just could not believe this man could do something so terrible. He said, "We prayed in church for a conclusion to this crime spree," like while Dennis was in church with them. So, like, Dennis is praying with everybody. Like, but he loved that. He got off on that.
Of course.
Our prayers were not answered in the way we expected them to be answered, but they were answered. Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Okay, sure.
When detectives broke the news to Dennis's daughter, she could not believe it was true. She began reading, and she had actually heard of BTK, but she's like, I just didn't really know much about it, like, even growing up in the area. Like, she was off at college at this time, but she said, like, she didn't even pay this BTK story any mind. She just had heard of it,
Mm.
never was interesting to her, never really thought much of it, and went off to school. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, that serial killer everyone's talking about, that's your dad. And she tried to go online to like read about what he did to almost reassure herself that like maybe she can rationalize it, like maybe her dad's
Sure.
not as bad as everyone's making it out to be. And of course, the tales of fucking horror that she started reading online were just beyond anything she could have predicted
I
and
mean,
were so much worse.
imagine even seeing like the picture of him in the mask and you're like, that's
Yeah.
my fucking
You're like,
basement.
that's
Like,
not my dad. That I know. It must be so mind fucking to be like, how is that my father?
and also like
Oof.
this, I don't know what to make of the information. I'm just putting it out there that I'm noticing my brain going to those kids who had to grow up being bullied by everyone thinking like your dad's a killer, your dad's a
Mhm.
killer, and like they grew up with like this whole journey of trauma having to deal with like wondering every day if they should even feel safe with their dad. And I'm noticing that she's having a different experience where she didn't have to deal with that, but now as an adult she's having this like crazy reckoning. And
Yes, she's having like such a reckoning of like, how do I reconcile having a happy, safe, loving
yeah,
father with
it's
this?
which we talked about last week a little bit. I don't remember
Mhm.
if it was while recording or just like between us, but like the humanizing a serial killer is
Yes.
in a lot of ways is very controversial but important also to like
Yes,
remember that
yes.
like even if you don't want to humanize them, humanize the fact that there are people on the other side of the narrative that are being affected in all sorts of ways, and that's just two ways that children are fucked up now.
Oh, completely.
Where like there's two kids who like had an innocent father, and instead of having getting the space to grieve their dead mom, they had to be living in fear of their own father and getting bullied for it their whole lives. And there's
Yep.
a whole other story now of someone who literally lived with a serial killer and had fear growing up because she knew there was a serial killer in her area, then kind
Mhm.
of forgot about it, and then now finds out her father's the one. I mean, like, it's, I think that's one of the reasons why you and I encourage empathizing or showing compassion in some way to even though not the worst people, but at least the people affected by their actions that did love
Just to
them.
at least relate to them in a way where it's like, oh, this isn't some inhuman monster. I mean, it is in a way, but like in another way, it's just the guy next door. It's just someone's dad. It's the president of the church. It's the
Yeah.
Cub Scout leader. Like it's the pillar of the community. You know, it's not just this monster that none of us will ever encounter. It's like these people are real and they're out there, unfortunately. And so, you know, if we're going to talk about them, at least we should know, you know, not everyone has like a radar that they can sense who's a serial killer, who's not, even as much as we try to think we'll know if we come across somebody like that.
Yeah.
You know, some people that's their gift. They're good at hiding that part of themselves. And
Yeah. And
she's
a lot of
talked about Carrie has talked about telling her own children, like having to explain where their grandfather is,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
why they don't really talk about him. Like, you know, they kept saying, "What did he do? What did he do to go to jail?" And she's like, "I just had to find ways to discuss
Like
this
how
with
honest do
them."
you want to be? And like
I
also
know.
if you don't tell them the truth, then does he still have power over you by making you lie to your kids? Like it's
Yeah.
yeah. So it's at least when we try to somehow humanize people every now and then, it's for me it's to at least remember to show sympathy for the collateral damage in their life, which is
Yes.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. And to keep everyone on alert that like these are real people. Like
Yeah.
they're just everyday people. They're not just like these larger than life
Yeah,
monsters, you
someone
know.
drinking beer at the bowling alley. It could
Right.
be the serial killer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was a really hard thing, really hard, and I think she's still struggling with, you know, reconciling those two parts of her life, those two parts of her father. Meanwhile, others who knew Dennis, like for example, the women he harassed in the neighborhood, the woman whose dog he had euthanized for no reason, the
Mm.
men who witnessed him behave this way, did not really agree with this like all-American guy, you know. They knew all along that he was an abusive man and abused his power. Um and so they kind of were like, yeah, that actually doesn't surprise us as much as it surprises everyone else. But in his interviews, you can just feel how much Dennis loves talking about himself. It's disgusting. He was so self-involved. He wanted to tell people what he did. He wanted to analyze why he did it. Very Ed Kemper vibes. Like, let's talk about me for a while. Let's
Mhm.
psychoanalyze my brain.
Well, also to
But
have like
this
30 or 40 or 50 years of your life that you never got to talk about, and now
Oh
someone's
Lord.
sitting
I mean,
across the
you're
table from
100%
you.
right. You haven't even journaled it, you know? You finally get to just
It's your first
spit it all
person you
out.
get to say it to. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're listening intently. So, despite all this, Dennis tried to enter a not guilty plea in April after waiving his right to a preliminary hearing before trial. I mean, this is how narcissistic this guy is. But Dennis's defense team knew there was overwhelming evidence against Dennis, and they didn't have solid support for an insanity plea. So, in late June, Dennis surprised the court by suddenly pleading guilty to 10 counts of first degree murder. During sentencing, he stunned the court with graphic details of his crimes. And I've listened to a lot of this retelling. It's very long, very in depth, deeply disturbing, especially because his tone is so calm and matter of fact. It's almost like he doesn't feel at all affected by them, but he's sort of like, let me think. Did I find her with a this kind of knot or this kind of knot? You know, he's talking
Mm.
like he's describing what he had for breakfast this morning. You know, like was it that? Was it
Do you
did
think
I
he
kill
was,
her first?
since you've heard it, do you think he was like, he knew what he was doing and he was eating up the fact that he knew his behavior and the way he was handling it was terrifying people?
No, I think he just wanted to tell the entire story from beginning to end, and
Really?
it
He just had
really
no idea that it was even fucked up the way that he was talking about it. Wow.
no, I don't think it fazed him. I think he genuinely just said, "You know what? You all deserve an explanation. Here it is." And everyone was like, "Yeah, you're really talking about this like i- you're describing the baseball game, you know? It just
Yeah.
so graphic and it definitely doesn't match the tone. But you know, what do you expect from the guy who enjoyed doing it,
I
right?
wonder
Like
if I wonder if he, I mean, do we, I don't know if you know why he all of a sudden changed his plea to guilty, but part of me feels like he was like, this is my opportunity. Like I'm already going to jail even on a plea
mhm,
charge, like I would be going to jail. I might as well take my 5 minutes of fame and get on a literal soapbox and just
mhm.
be as detailed as I possibly want and just finally
Yeah, I
get to
think
tell my story.
I think a major part of the switch was because his defense team said like you're not getting there's no way out of this. Like you're not getting a sanity plea. There's so much evidence like you're going to prison and yes, he probably then thought okay, well, then I want to tell my side of things.
Yeah.
And this was his chance. And he did. He went over every single case that we know of, at least. And meanwhile, victims' loved ones, like the surviving Otero children, who were now adults, had to listen to Dennis describe how he chose his victims, how he killed them, including their little sister. I mean, just so fucked up. He described their last words. He described the things they said to him as they were dying. Um, for example, the Otero's mother said, said, "May God have mercy on your soul," and
Mm.
that was the last thing she said to him. And the oldest son, who had been dealing with this trauma forever, said that was at least like one glimmer of like comfort to him that his mother was strong enough to say that as her final words.
Hmm.
But I mean, still, this is after decades the first time he's hearing what really happened to his family. So, despite all this, Dennis then asked for forgiveness from the victims' families. He believed he deserved forgiveness. He said, "The dark side was there, but now I think light is beginning to shine." And finally, a final apologize to the victims' families. "There's no way that I can ever repay you." Of course, nobody fucking forgave him because,
Hmm.
like, get out of here. There was no capital punishment in Kansas when the crimes were committed, so he was not eligible for the death penalty. And at 60 years old, he was instead sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms for his crimes and to serve a minimum of 175 years before the possibility of parole. So, in the following years, as you can imagine, interviews, books, documentaries, this guy was everywhere. They interviewed him so he could share his own story, always what he wanted, you know, a story from his mouth. Uh, you know, it's it's a hard one to justify because on the one hand, it's like you don't want to give him the credit of like reading his own testimony of
Hmm.
what happened, but on the other hand, it's like a lot of the detail and information is from him, you know? So
Right.
it's kind of a
Right.
hard line to walk. Um, you know, there's this ego he has that is fed by people obsessing over him and his crimes, calling him BTK. He loves talking about his thought process. He loves mulling over why he is the way that he is. Like interviewers basically ask him to, share his side, and he just loves it. He eats it up. So in 2016, Catherine Ramsland published a book called Confession of a Serial Killer, The Untold Story of Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer. And the book description says, through jailhouse visits, telephone calls, and written correspondence, Catherine Ramsland worked with Rader himself to analyze the layers of his psyche. And now he's getting this book deal he's always wanted. He's telling the story from his own dumbass mouth. But in 2019, Dennis's daughter Carrie published her own book, and that book was called A Serial Killer's Daughter: My Story of Hope, Love, and Overcoming. So this was all very controversial because you can imagine why. Those interested in the case and topics like what happens to a serial killer's family in the wake of his crimes, they loved this book and believed Carrie was a victim herself and deserved to share her story. But then other people felt like this was just another PR piece for the Rader family. For example, Carrie describes being caught off guard at sentencing when the prosecution further describes details of Dennis's crimes. And she wrote, they checked with the victims' families before proceeding, but the prosecution didn't check in with this family, the 8th family. I found out later that others had come to the defense of our innocent family, asking if there was an actual need to do this. Wouldn't it embarrass my family further, shame us, hurt us? No one asked or warned us it was coming. And I feel like I can see both ways of that. It's like, it's not necessarily about you guys right now because he is finally getting justice for the brutality and just the horrors that he did to these families and these children. But also, of course, it's not fair to you either. This isn't like you didn't do this. This is not your fault or your doing, and you're suffering too. It's hard. I don't know. I don't think there's an easy answer. I think
I don't think there is either.
Or like you said earlier, did he know what position he was putting his family in? Obviously he didn't, or he didn't care, because he really put them through hell. But that's as far as I can say confidently how I feel, because I don't quite know, because I do believe she was a victim in her own way. But I just don't think there's an easy answer as to like what we're supposed to do about it. I don't know. So she was also criticized for writing that she has never read the statements by the victims' families because they were too hard for her to read. Also don't know where I stand on that. This is a lot
I can see both sides of that for sure.
Right? It's like there's so much grief and trauma, and she's raising her own children, and it's like
and also like you don't want to. Nobody knows the experience of having BTK as your father other than her, and like she really just doesn't want to hear what her dad did to people, and like she can still have sympathy for them. I don't know.
It's hard because then on the other hand, it's like, well, then you should know what he did, but it's like, but you can't force her. I don't know. It's a very weird, icky feeling. I honestly don't think there's an easy answer. It's like,
it feels gross to judge her on that. It's like, I think if she gets a pass, like, I think that's a fair pass. Like,
I mean, right. Like, I'm like, okay, I don't think we should maybe linger on that too much. I don't know. I mean, again, you can't force her to read it, but I can see why people would be upset that she hasn't fully acknowledged all of what he did. I don't know. I mean, I'll just tell you what other people feel. So, readers ultimately believe Carrie has a right to her grief and trauma, of course, but so many interviews and documentaries focus on Dennis and his words and his feelings and his backstory that it sort of felt like, oh God, the media is now prioritizing another person instead of the victims' families. You know what I mean? Like, I think people just were frustrated about that.
No, that makes sense.
Of course, people were still sympathetic to Carrie and her family's grief because what a shithole they found themselves in all of a sudden.
Did she keep a relationship with him when he went to prison?
It took a long, long, long time. And she finally wrote him a letter, and he responded, and she said they've had like a tenuous back and forth.
Okay.
over the years. Yeah. So the 2022 Hulu miniseries BTK Confession of a Serial Killer once again put Dennis in the limelight, featuring interviews with him so he could share his side of things, like he always wanted. He's still alive. He remains in prison. In August, he made headlines for the first time in years, having been named the prime suspect in 2 cold cases, one in Missouri and one in Oklahoma. There was 16-year-old Cynthia Kinney, who was last seen at a laundromat in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, before she vanished in 1976. And recently, they reopened her case, and investigators realized the building across the street was having a new alarm system installed right when she disappeared.
Mm.
Interesting. It seems Dennis was a regional installer who may have worked in the area occasionally at the time, and he also included in some of his writings the phrase bad laundry day.
Ew.
Yeah. And she was last seen at a laundromat. So he's also being investigated for the rape and murder of 22-year-old Shauna Beth Garber. Her body was found 2 months after her death in 1990 in McDonald County, Missouri, but police couldn't at the time identify her, and she became a Jane Doe. When Shauna was 7 years old, she and her 5-year-old brother Rob had been separated in foster care, and Rob said, growing up without her, there was always just a hole in my life that I couldn't fill. So as soon as he was 18, Rob started looking for his sister. When he got married, his wife made it her mission to reunite her husband and his sister, which is really sweet. Of course, it didn't end very well. In 2021, investigators used DNA to finally identify Shauna as the unnamed Jane Doe that they had discovered back in 1990. And Rob said it was devastating just to find out that she'd been sitting in a box for 30 years.
That's
And
awful.
he's been out there looking for her, thinking she's alive somewhere and they're going to reunite.
Ugh.
Terrible. So Shauna's death seems to also match Dennis's profile, but there really is no public evidence confirming this link yet. Dennis's daughter, Carrie, is actually actively working with investigators to follow these leads. So she's also like actively trying to help police keep her dad in prison and answer questions they have. So at least, she's on board in that sense. And she said, if my dad has harmed somebody else, we need answers.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're her, honestly, there's probably no winning. Like, there's probably no way to win in the eyes of the public. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get criticized, whatever you do. If Dennis was indeed involved in these 2 cold cases, investigators hope to finally bring justice and closure to the families by finally, getting some links, finding some connection. Regardless of who is guilty, Rob hopes the new attention on his sister's case will find some answers. He said, somebody knows something, and maybe this will be what they need to bring them forward. And that is the case of Dennis Rader. The end.
Sorry, I promised I'd do it last time. I know that was kind of like not tasteful. I'm sorry, but I did.
know, now it feels like we're clapping for
Yeah,
that asshole.
that sounded as it happened. I went, I don't know about if that was
it
good.
almost feels like maybe we're clapping for it, that it's over and that he's in prison.
Over. Yes,
there's some closure there.
Well, also, round of applause to you, because that I know that was a topic that you've been thinking about for like almost 400 episodes. So
I know we almost thought we were never gonna do it, and then I found myself just in the rabbit hole.
Well, you did a very good job. I know that was a lot of pressure on you, and it was a lot of research for both of you, and it was I'm very proud of you. You did a good job.
Thank you, Em. That's so nice. I'm excited to have a beer with you during the after chat for my little mini fridge because I think I need one. I'm like, man, it's 5:30.
I'll go make myself a little quick mocktail as I'm talking to you.
Hell yeah.
And just before I forget, is there topic request, which maybe I've asked in the past, but I don't know. I would love for you, maybe this is like too small to be an episode, so it could be an after hours or after hours. I don't remember what we're doing.
I never remember what we're doing.
Is if you can explain the the sentencing stuff, because like the fact that like he got like a minimum of 175, like what calculator did that? Like who, what
I don't
lawyer
think
said?
there's an. I think that would be. I think
Is that too
I feel
overwhelming?
like that's the. There's no real.
Like, are they
There's
just
so many.
arbitrarily picking a number? Because like in my mind, it's like if your minimum sentence is 175 years, how is that any different than assigning him 5,000 years? Like, I don't
Yeah.
get it. Like, he's
So it's
already gonna
usually
die in
based on
prison.
the charges, like how many charges there are, how many crimes he's found guilty of, what the level of those crimes are, then they add up and then a judge weighs in. I mean, I don't know. I'm no lawyer. I think even lawyers would have a very hard time explaining that process.
Well, if you ever want to make it up and just like spew bullshit at me,
I'll happily. I think I just did make it up. So
that's
I'll
what that's what After Hours is for, where it's not taken seriously. You just kind of give me your best guess.
we
So
just kind of bullshit our way through it. Yep.
all right. Well, I'll see you over there. I'll have a mocktail
Phew.
in hand, and we'll do some After Hours. So if you want to come hang out with us and hear us chit chat, you are welcome to on Patreon. And
I'm going to take the quiz. That's
why
we
drink.